turn back. You've clicked on the wrong video. Welcome to Indecent Composure, podcast about nothing. I am one of your hosts, Gibson. I almost just said I'm your host. I'm gonna take over.
Yes.
Yeah, Freudian slip.
It's just
I'm
one
joined
now.
by my usual co-host Aydin.
Yes. Hello.
And we have special guest Eric Ray with us tonight.
Do we?
I don't know.
I don't know. I was pretty sure.
I've never met this man.
So big
Oh,
shock.
which one of us? Oh, yourself? You haven't met Eric?
Oh.
No.
Oh. Well, that's awkward.
Well, I've met him a
'cause
couple
you
times.
are, Eric.
Well, not in person, but I've heard he's a really nice guy.
I can't believe he didn't show up to the podcast. The prick.
Yeah, what a dick.
Yeah.
What a dick.
How
But-
dare he?
Contrary to what Gibson was trying to do, taking over and having only one host, we're actually kind of adding a third one. Because, Gibson and I are the primary co-hosts here. We have basically what will probably become our unofficial third co-host. Eric, we're going to try to have him on as much as possible. So get used to his voice, because
Yes.
it's here to stay. And if you don't like it, then fucking leave.
Yes.
Um,
I'm basically.
if you don't like it, then get your ears checked. For
From
God's sake.
my understanding, I'm basically going to be the, hey, Eric, we're doing a podcast. Want to hop on? And then I'll be like, sure. Or I'll be like, I don't have time. And they'll be like, okay. And then that'll be as much as that conversation goes. So
Yeah,
like,
that's gonna happen multiple times in the future.
So
Or we'll all
probably
die.
especially this summer, just because I'm not doing anything. I'll probably be
Yes.
on a lot, but I'll
Yes.
probably die eventually. And then I'll come back
Well,
every now and then.
One day.
Who knows?
yeah. But
One day, the Grim Reaper comes for all our asses.
Did you want to introduce yourself more properly, Eric, since you're going to be like an unofficial co-host, or did you want to just kind of
Sure.
drift through it? All right.
Why the heck not? So my name is Eric.
Whoa!
Very crazy. I know these guys. I've known these guys for a while, if you couldn't guess. I am very into animals. I think we're all into animals here, but I kind of get the sense that I'm like the most into animals.
Probably.
I'm the animal. I'm the one who's going to school to study them. So that's
Yes.
that's my gist.
And you watch birds.
I do
Constantly.
watch birds. I watch birds often. I'm a big bird watcher / birder. I have a
Bird.
list of all the birds I've seen.
Are you
I've
a
only
bird
been
herder? Do you
keeping
herd
track.
birds?
I do not herd birds, fortunately.
Sad.
What was I going to say? I have a list of all the birds I've seen. Granted, I've only been keeping track for like a little over a year now, but I've seen 192 birds as of right now, which is pretty cool. I do that. I draw. I make videos. I watch videos. I learn about animals and science. I
Do
like
you notice
all that.
how much more specific this is getting over time?
It is getting more specific. It's getting less vague.
Yeah.
And
Information
I think
is
that's kind
revealing itself.
I think that's kind of my gist. I don't think there's too much else to know about me.
Well, I guess since we've established in the last video that Gibson and I are, I guess, borderline clones, we'll just say that he's the bear, I'm the bunny, and Eric's the zookeeper. He's the
Yeah, I'm
Ah.
the zookeeper.
he's the zoologist.
That makes sense.
Yes, I definitely
He's
do
studying
not
us
share.
because we're freaks of nature.
Yes, we share many interests. We do not. I think they share more similarities than I share with either of them.
We have a
This
lot
is
of
true.
charts
We are
over
still,
other
like-
areas.
I'm more similar to them than like if you took a random person off the street.
Yes.
I don't
think
know
that's
about
kind
that.
of-
Random people can be all
Oh,
sorts of
insane.
things.
I think that
hence
Gibson and I
random.
are most alike when it comes to like our media taste and whatnot, and like all that stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have.
Well,
a lot
I mean,
of
we
other
like.
stuff, but-
My kind of gist with that is like I like a lot of the same stuff you guys do too, but just kind of when stuff gets a lot more moody and atmospheric, you
That's where
guys
you
are like,
check out.
ooh, and I'm like, yeah, boring, boring.
He wasn't a big fan of Blade Runner 2049, which Gibson
No.
and I adore.
It was.
So,
it was.
Yeah,
I will
I
not
almost
say.
had to burn down the cabin.
I will not. I will not say that Blade Runner 2049 was a bad film. Like I was like, I don't have a lot of objective issues with this. Like it's got a lot of good things. It's just not my style.
Yeah. No, I can respect.
There's
that.
not a lot of objective issues I could come up with, but it's just not the style I go with.
So
My face right now is like a panda that fell out of a tree.
So have we introduced our boy? Do you think that he's properly introduced at this point?
I think everyone probably knows
introduced-
everything about him down to his social security number at this point.
And how long his hair is.
I think they know me enough, you know? I think they'll be able to figure out a lot more about who I am as the podcasts go along.
Yes.
I
So
think that's our introduction.
let's get into the meat of this. And actually, I didn't
Yeah, stop wasting time.
really check with you guys. I probably should have checked with you guys, but I want to make a little bit of a shout out, just a tiny bit of a shout out, because I actually met before we get into the. I mean, you've read the title. I don't need to properly introduce the whole goddamn video for you. We're gonna talk about dinosaur plastic, okay? But because it's relevant, I was selling a bunch of my dinosaur figures on eBay, and one of the guys who bought one of my figures from me turned out to be a pretty big dude in the community, like in just like paleontology, like fandom, and like people that really are enthusiasts about it. And I was shocked to know that I never heard of his business. There's this guy that runs this magazine called Prehistoric Times, and I had no clue
shit!
that it's an actual magazine, and I had no clue it existed. And he was really disappointed. He's like,
I've been following that for ages.
Oh, you didn't?
Well, I'm in Aiden's boat. This is the first time hearing of this, I think.
I've never heard of it before, so I wanted to just give him a shout out because he's a really nice guy. His actual name is escaping me. I'm so sorry. It's been a while since I've contacted you, and I've been busy with other things. But Prehistoric Times, please look it up. I think it's prehistorictimes.com. It's a really cool magazine, and not enough people are aware of it. I wasn't aware of it, so I just want to help a dude out. I did this back on my old channel for the website I found out about called djenkins.com. Whenever I find these really cool little nuggets in the community that are kind of undiscovered, I want to give them shout outs. So that's another thing. If you don't know about D. Jenkins, if you like buying dinosaur figures, go to djenkins.com. It's D-E. I'll link it in the description.
Close that tab with Dan's dinosaurs in it.
Yes, and go to D.
and open a new tab.
Yes. D. Jenkins, D. Jenkins is great. Like, he's on the other side of the country from me, but since he ships with priority mail, like, everything, like, pretty much universally gets to my house within 2 days. It's great.
And it's so well packed. I'm always shocked. It's just, like, everything's so well protected, and that's such a big deal for me with ordering figures.
Yeah, it's well protected, and he doesn't mess up real. Like, I've never had an issue with him messing up. I don't think you guys have. I've heard this dude knows, he'll be listening to this, I'm sure. He knows that I'm talking about him. But I know he got a mess up with one of D. Jenkins' orders one time where basically he mixed up the EoFauna and the Safari Giganotosaurus, and he ordered the EoFauna one, he got the Safari, and someone ordered the Safari and got the EoFauna. But then, like, they figured out and stuff. But that's, like, the only issue I've ever heard with his service.
I mean, I wouldn't even complain.
Just like seems like just a mistake. Like he put the wrong Giganotosaurus. I mean, at least they were Giganotosaurus, you know? It's not like it's not like he did some other crazy thing.
He didn't send him a PNSO Tarbosaurus by mistake and force him to burn down his own house.
Yeah.
Which kind of segues into the talk of the town at this.
So my notes before we get into specific figures, I have some notes, but I want to start with like talking a little bit. I know all of us have things to say about this. Sort of our collective shift in our outlook on collecting plastic crap.
Plastic dinosaurs, not just any. We don't collect anything plastic.
But
you don't go into my house and it's like. You don't go into your house and you're like, here's my plastic lid, here's my straw, here's my fork, here's a wrapper I found.
Don't know what I'm hiding in my secret room.
Oh, Gibson and I both apparently have some secrets.
Yeah, well. No, but, yeah, so for a while, like, because I've been, obviously, I mean, I think probably most people who collect any sort of figures or anything can relate to the fact that this started as just a childhood thing of buying toys, and then eventually I decided to get stingy about it and start buying manly adult toys.
I thought it started as an adult hobby and then
not you though. You're right.
Children.
You are an exception, but
I started collecting when I was a late 15-year-old because I was watching you, Gibson. I was watching your channel.
I spread the virus. Good.
Yeah, and then I was like, this seems like something I want to get into because, like, at that point, I don't think I'd bought a toy in years and years and years and years. I certainly was never doing it as like a collecting thing. I definitely started collecting as a young adult.
He did it the latest out of all of us. Both Gibson and I started with like the Carnegie from Safari.
Yes, Carnegie collection stuff.
I started when Carnegie was already discontinued.
Yeah. So even as a kid, I was already like surrounded by really good quality stuff that I really shouldn't have even had because I just destroyed it all. But hey, that's
much
just
high quality than I have.
You know,
is all I'll say.
That's just part of the process, I guess. But yeah, anyhow, so for a while, like going into adulthood, as I just started collecting stuff, I mean, it was just kind of like anything I liked, I bought. And I just sort of didn't care about like shelf space. I was like, well, I'll work it out. I'll just make more space. Doesn't really matter. I'm just going to keep getting things. And then at some point, relatively recently, I guess maybe like a year and a half ago now, I just started coming to the general conclusion that I have too much shit and I need to pare it down. So I've done that. But along with the general shift of just wanting to get less things and have less things, like specifically I've been moving to more of a mode of just caring more about the quality of the stuff I'm getting, because I realized at some point just how many figures and stuff I've bought where they aren't super special to me or anything, they're just kind of solid. And I want to get into a place where like everything I have is something that I really wanted and can tell the story of why I bought it. I want you to be able to point at anything I have on display on my shelf and be like, why did you buy this ugly thing? And I can be like, because valid reason. I don't know. But yeah, and a big part of this shift as well has been directly triggered by buying some of the beasts of the Mesozoic ceratopsids, because that shit just like, it started making me go like, wow, do I even need like anything else now?
Yeah.
And as the hype has died down, I've slowly determined that, well, yes, some of the other things are very nice too, but it really, when you get stuff that's really high quality, tailor-made for adult collectors and stuff, it just starts making you more, I guess,
puts things in perspective.
It made me want to be more selective, and it puts everything in a different perspective, like you say. And yeah, it's kind of like my shelves now. I have way less stuff on them, and it's way more pared down to just my favorite things and the highest quality stuff that I've collected over the years, and it feels like a positive change for me. But hey, I'm rambling, so I'll let you guys add on to it, because I know you guys have been going through similar shifts in mindset.
I'm similar-ish. I don't know if I'm quite to the same extent. Like, there are of course figures that I have that if something happened to this figure, I wouldn't buy a new one.
Yeah.
But there's a lot, I mean, like, a lot of my collection I still, like, am very much attached to and stuff. I mean, granted, I've also positioned my collection right now so that everything I like's in the front, so I can actively see, like, everything I'm cool with, and that kind of gives me
You turn to the side and see what's in the back, and you're just like,
oh,
God.
Yeah, when I look in the back, then I kind of get the more feeling of, like, ooh, yeah, I don't know if I need this one. I am definitely a lot more, like, yeah, I'm a lot more stingy. I do feel as though there was a time in the past when I was kind of just buying stuff to buy stuff. Like, I was, I've definitely kind of been coming out of this where I used to, like, want to ultimate collect stuff. So, like, collect all the figures from this year or any particular year. And though I'm still kind of that way with Safari in particular, I'm definitely like Collecta. I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that with Collecta anymore. Though Collecta still does a lot of nice stuff. But I am definitely in the position of really want to prioritize more getting stuff that I actually really like, as opposed to something that's, I'm like, oh yeah, that's decent. I'd rather buy something that's awesome as opposed to something that's good.
Yeah.
I think over time, like the more like budget companies that sort of thread the needle for appealing to both adult collectors and just kids looking for plastic dinosaurs to play with, like Safari Ltd and Collect Day and Papo and stuff, like I'm to the point where if they make something specific, Safari I'm still working with the hashtag How I Safari, so I still get most of their stuff to review, just because it's part of that whole thing. But like for the other companies on that similar level of quality and price, like if they make something cool and I'm like, whoa, that's a gem, I'll grab it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I'm trying to just prioritize my funds to go to Beast of the Mesozoic, amazingly made, hand-painted, well-crafted, accurate action figures, or EoFauna, these freaking computer-created, hyper-anatomically accurate scale models of
For
shit.
all intents and purposes,
or even like PNSO, which is like more variable, but still a more expensive thing typically. And I'm going for that, not just because it's more expensive, but because I'm just trying to pare it down again to the shit that is getting me excited, where I'm like, this isn't just good. I really want this, and it feels like a product worth spending the money on.
One thing, and I want to obviously have Aydin talk here in a second, but one thing that kind of made me
don't worry.
Oh, okay. One thing that
just
really
leaves the call.
So as you know, as you two know, I recently got the EoFauna trike and the Collecta Elasmosaurus, and the Elasmosaurus really kind of opened my eyes of being like, oh yeah, like there's a lot of like cheaper figures that I want, because like this thing's really good. Like,
that thing looked good.
I highly recommend someone to get this. I forget how much.
It's low on my list somewhere.
Well, I'm gonna look up right now how much it is on D Jenkins Live, but it's it's under $10.
Because I just sold my Elasmosaurus from Safari, so I'm actually out of plesiosaurs. I have my Elasmosaurus from the Carnegie Elasmosaurus, but that one.
It's only $6.50 on D Jenkins.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And it's like,
I need to get it to go with my Thalasso.
It's not small. It's like 8 inches long, big. Something like that.
It's like the same size as the Safari one.
Oh, it's 9 inches long. Yeah, it's a decent sized figure, and it's got beautiful coloration. I really love the light stripes on its gray back, and I don't even know what color to call them. They're like a pinkish red fins. Just look awesome. Yeah. Like, they add so much to the figure. Like, this is such a nice looking thing that's really reminded me that, cool. Like, oh yeah, there's some cheaper figures that are really good that I still want to get.
Collect Day in particular, I have to say, like, no shade to anybody else, but Collect Day is kind of at the top of the lower tier stuff for me now, if that makes sense. Like, I'm still trying to prioritize stuff like BOTM the most, but Collect Day is the one that continuously just keeps pressing me. I got the Dunkleosteus from them recently, which is like, could use it as a fucking zombie killing implement because it's so big and heavy. It's a really impressive Dunkleosteus, and it's really well designed.
The
and
I want that one.
Fucking ready.
Yeah, exactly.
Before we move on real quick, I just want, just because I'm holding the Plesiosaurus right now, another thing that I love about this one is just how the flexibility of the neck, I'm pretty sure, is pretty similar, because it's a bendy plastic, is pretty similar to what this animal could actually do in life, I'm pretty sure. So I think that's pretty cool.
Oh, like is it kind of restricted? Like, so it's fairly like restrained and fairly accurate, or is it like?
Yeah, well, because I mean, like, I know that there was kind of that phase in plesiosaur science where people were like, oh, their necks weren't actually flexible, but then people did some other things because, like, you weren't accounting for the fact that there was cartilage, and they're like, actually, though they weren't snake-like, they were actually a bit more flexible than. Those people are being a bit too restrictive.
Yeah,
like, so this thing can
Similar thing happened with sauropods, like, especially Diplodocus. Yeah.
So this thing can, I'm doing it right now, it can do a semicircle with its neck. It can't really do a swan pose, though, you know, which I'm pretty sure is accurate. I'm pretty sure from what I've seen of diagrams of plesiosaur neck flexibility that this is pretty similar to what it can do.
I'll have to snag that one at some point, because
it's really nice. Story, I highly recommend it.
Yeah,
for being so cheap.
My collection story is pretty much like same as what Gibson was saying. Although I started earlier than any of us in this call, like down the road of like really just starting to swipe other shit off the shelves and just really start to, because my collection has not grown since I bought my first BOTM Raptor. I was the last one of our friend group to get into Beast of the Mesozoic.
That's right.
But once I did,
that is so weird now.
I became the BOTM guy of our group because I like have so much shit now. If you guys don't know, I already like basically own all of Wave 3 of the Ceratopsians. I just don't have them yet because they're not out. But like I'm super passionate about
pre-ordered
BOTM stuff.
the entire fucking wave.
Yeah, outside of the Xenoceratops and the Penta, but I'm going to get the Penta. I don't have it yet. I haven't pre-ordered that one, but all the other ones besides the Xeno and the Penta, I've got those. But yeah, what Eric is saying, like with the Marine guys, is reminding me that there's some sections on my because I have 2 shelves on my wall that are like my whole, like my main collection, like just the dinosaur figurines, which is like the lower tier stuff, or like stuff that are all kind of roughly around the 1/40th scale, that kind of stuff. That shelf is, it feels like I could really expand like the Cenozoic section or the Marine section, but like at the same time I'm really struggling because when I buy things like BOTM or EoFauna, I'm like, this is just so much more satisfying to get this like much higher quality figure than the smaller things. It's tough for me to convince myself to do it sometimes. So it's nice to know that like really nice things like that are really cheap, because then it's even more incentive for me to get it, and it's good quality. So I'll have to. I still am. I'm on this weird like what is it called? A seesaw. I'm like teeter-tottering or trying to balance out like that. I do want to like kind of. I don't necessarily want to just fill out those 2 shelves that I have, which is it's gonna stay that size. I'm just gonna cycle things out. But I do want some diversity there, even though I still want to prioritize like just what I like over what I just want to have represented, if you know what I mean. But I still would. I feel like there's some Cenozoic and like even a little bit of Paleozoic, but honestly, it's mostly Cenozoic and just like Mesozoic marine animals that I would really like to get and just fill out the collection a bit.
I think
because
I've like it go.
Oh, I was just gonna say, my setup right now is like, I've got the big shelf with just all the big good stuff on it, and then I've got 3 smaller side shelves that are just carnivores, herbivores, and then just non-dinosaurs of all types, and it is kind of, like, the more I get selective and the more I pare stuff down, I've been honestly kind of pleased with the distribution of things, like the proportions of different groups and stuff, and just how much I have. Because like one of the disgusting things that just seems to occur naturally, no matter how much you try to avoid it when collecting these figures, that you just end up with an influx of theropods constantly. And I've gotten so selective that I just have 1 shelf with theropods. Well, I technically 2, but mostly they're all on 1 shelf, and there's not too many left. And it's like really satisfying to see that shit just whittled right down
to
only the things that really deserve to be out.
Problem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
I'm definitely in a situation where like I don't know if I ever was doing this, but I've totally given up on trying to have a diverse collection. I'm just like, if this looks cool, I get it. Like, I don't care. I'm just like, this is cool, you know?
I will say,
none of it's left in you. There's no.
Well, I mean,
well,
I'm
that
just
stuff
like,
is
who
neat.
cares? Who cares if this Elasmosaurus is the first long-necked plesiosaur I've ever had? Like, I don't care. It looks cool. That's why I got it. I didn't get it because it's a long-necked plesiosaur.
Yeah, I mean, that should
like I
be
will say,
mentality.
while I still do think about that stuff, it used to be a huge priority, and I used to be really obsessed with it. I know Aydin used to do this too, where it'd be like, more companies need to make more hadrosaurs, they need to make more pterosaurs, or whatever. And now I'm like, you know what? I don't fucking care what the genus or family group is 90% of the time.
Yeah.
A perfect
I'm just
example.
looking for things that are good. The execution matters more than the animal.
I would support more pterosaurs, but the issue with hadrosaurs are boring.
Yeah. Well, like
I mean, you're not wrong.
A perfect example of this is the Pachycephalosaurus. I used to say this all the time to other people in the community and on my old channel that I wanted more Pachycephalosaurs specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And then PNSO made their new Pachycephalosaurus, and I was even bitching about Safari's one because while I do like it, it had some nice colors, at least the promo version of it did. I was like, this is just not what I want. It just doesn't. It's too infantile. Like it's too young of an. Like it just didn't. It didn't capture what I wanted in a Pachycephalosaur.
It looks like a juvenile. It's just kind of this chubby thing with an underdeveloped head.
Yeah, and then PNSO makes one. I'm like, damn. You know, I instantly, like, it has problems to it. I don't know what all they have are because I haven't, like, really scrutinized it, but I just glanced at it, I'm like, that's what I wanted. Instantly, I recognize that as a Pachycephalosaurus. That's what I've been waiting for. That's what I've wanted from a Pachycephalosaurus, and I'm not fucking buying it because it just made me realize that I don't give a shit because I just really don't actually want a Pachycephalosaurus. Like, I've come full circle.
Like, why don't more companies make Pachycephalosaurs? Oh, it's because they don't matter.
Yes. Like, I don't want to be mean to them because I think they're cool, but, like...
I want the PNSO one, personally, but I understand that, and I've had that happen with other stuff, too, where, like... Because hadrosaurs are one thing that I've wanted more of, and then PNSO came out with this new Lambeosaurus, and Parasaurolophus, and Grithosaurus, all of which are... They're not my favorite new PNSO things, but none of them are, like, full-on duds. I'm not interested in them at all. Like, the Lambeo is probably my favorite, but, like, I just don't care. Now, sometimes family groups can excite me to an extent, like, getting back to PNSO, like, they've done a ton of these new Theriophorines, Ankylosaurs, Stegosaurs, and such. I already have the Tuajang. I'm going to get the Miragaia, the Borealopelta at some point, and possibly the Panachosaurus, too. And like that has been cool but that's the type of thing that kind of surprised me. Whereas in the past I would be like, we need more Theriophorans. Now I don't really care. I'm just like, I didn't realize that I needed more of these, but now I'm gonna get them. It's just kind of a pleasant surprise because I'm not really thinking about it as much.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I did want to rake back to because you reminded me of it earlier and I forgot to mention it is that you and I were talking one time, Gibson, and you like really just kind of how do I put it? Like you really just encapsulate it and just really set it down to its fundamental level, like how I feel about like what my collection should be like. And while Eric, I agree with Eric, like the number one priority is just like, do I want it? But like still a little bit of me obviously like is interested in like those not sexualizing, but I mean a sexy dinosaur. Don't get me wrong, I'm down for sexy.
I'm not gonna complain.
Big,
but
no.
Sectionalizing, is that even a word? I don't know. Like when you're regionalizing, but whatever. Like you get categorizing. We'll call it that. Categorizing, like having little different zones for my figures. I still have some interest in that. But when it came down to it, what I'd noticed is that like when I was just buying figures just to buy figures, there was like not a lot of pride in it. Like this is literally a collection to like display what we love and have it all in one place, and we should be proud of it. But also like Gibson, I think you said like guests would come over to your house and you'd just be like, oh yeah, and these are my dinosaurs. And like, but you're not being like, oh, and look, these are my dinosaurs. Like you weren't really proud.
Yeah, I want to be the dumb nerd who's overexcited about it, and I want to be able to point at anything on the shelf and tell you why I bought it and why it was cool to me. And there's a certain point where there's only so many like solid yet repetitive Safari Ceratopsians that can be on the shelf until I'm just like, I have them because they exist. They were there, you know. And there's tons of other examples besides Safari Ceratopsids. I mean, there's so many things that I ended up just having an influx of, and so many figures I got to the point where I was just like, why am I keeping stuff on the... There'd be times, too, where I'd be, like, pointing at stuff on the shelf to, like, say, oh, yeah, and that one's terrible. And I'm like, wait, why is it still there? Like, why am I leaving up the Papopolacanthus, my infamously most hated dinosaur figure ever, just to say that, oh, I got it and I regret it and it's terrible? Like, it just shouldn't be there anymore. And as well, like another thing, I think Eric may have been the first to kind of bring this point up, but in terms of just like getting your money's worth, you hand me $60. Should I spend it on like 5 or 6 like collect day safari things, which will be neat, or one BOTM figure that I'm going to just fiddle with for like 3 weeks on end? You know, at a certain point too, like you start wanting to prioritize how you spend your money and stuff, because collecting anything can become really stupidly expensive. And at the end of the
Yeah.
day, you are literally just getting things to put them on a shelf and look at them.
Yeah.
So they really should be things that are worth the cost.
Well, I think it's important to remember to collect things in a healthy way. You know, not
Like with granola bars.
It's very easy to get obsessive about collect. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna buy everything. Blah. You know, just new stuff. I'm just gonna. I don't even care if it's bad or good. I'm just buying it. And I do.
Yeah, like
I do
there-
know that there are some people who with dinosaurs who are like that. But I
Yeah.
think it's important to be like, dude, if you don't like it, then why are you having it? And some people do like it. Some people just like, I just like having stuff, which
and that's cool.
It's cool, but yeah, I am definitely
I
like,
used to be
you do you.
it's
I can't
important
relate
to think
though.
about how you're collecting things and to make sure that if you're doing anything, like this is one of my big things, is if you're doing anything that's a hobby or a passion or a collection or anything like that,
Need to have
it's
restraint.
very important that you make sure you don't turn into an obsession.
Yes.
Where like it gets into an obsession when like it might be like hindering you. Like if you're buying I don't know, dinosaur figures when you could be, I don't know, paying off your mortgage or something.
Yeah.
Like, that's a problem. Like they're not that important. And it's important to remember, it's important that they're always at a point where they're not that important.
Yeah, like the last 2 years, 2020 and 2021, they've easily been my least busy collecting years since like before 2016.
Mm-hmm.
But I am the most
This year's
happy
mine
with
too.
the expansions, the collection I've made in those 2 years. Because even though I haven't barely gotten anything,
agree.
it's all been BOTM or the EoFauna trike or a couple other things. And it's been just great stuff. And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I bought this. The craftsmanship and the design is just like, this is such a well-made thing. This is worth it. I'm glad I have this. And I want to feel that way about everything I buy.
And I mean,
Yeah.
not only that, I've also started to lean, like I used to be a lot more like I guess polite to people that were like really, we'll just call them obsessive over like collecting a lot of different things, even if they don't see it that way. Everybody looking on the outside, when you have like an entire room filled from the floorboards to the ceiling full of dinosaur figures, and they're even like spilling over onto your everyday like stuff. It's just it's starting to become like borderline hoarding. I used to be more
that's
polite
the thing
about
with
it.
obsessions in general is you don't. Usually, it's the person who's having the obsession and stuff. Like they don't think about it, and
Yeah.
so it's kind of
Yeah,
important
and I
that
mean,
if you're doing
I
anything
got to
that
a
you
point
actually stop
where-
and think like, "What am I doing here? What is?"
I got to a
like,
point
is-
where I was sort of like, this sounds counterintuitive, but passively obsessed, where I guess not even really obsessed, but I was just passively just buying stuff without really considering
You're
it
doing
much.
it out
and
of habit.
out of habit,
Yeah.
exactly. I was literally just out of habit. And it got to a point where my shelves were just a fucking mess, and there was stuff spilling off them, and there was stuff on my desk, and there's stuff on my desk. There's stuff everywhere now, but it's like in the places I want it to be because I want it to be there. Not back then, I mean, there was just shit on the floor and like next to the shelf, sitting there just because there was no space for anything. And it was just stupid. And I think I don't remember what it is, but I know I could point to on my old channel, specifically the video where I'm showing off my shelves, and it's gotten to that point. And I think that was like around my breaking point where I was like, oh, this can't continue.
Too much. Go back.
too much.
I think that it's fuck, where was I going with this point? So I think that I have actually just come around to like you were kind of making a passive comment, like it's cool, and then Eric's like, I don't know, and I'm kind of with Eric on that. I'm like, I don't think it's cool anymore. Like I genuinely kind of, I'm just completely in favor of being more restrained. Like I think there's certain like situations where I can understand.
I generally actively try to be as non-judgmental as possible of just most things, but I mean, I agree that the mentality of becoming really obsessive with collecting anything is not something I particularly
I
like
just don't
relate
want to
to or
enable
respect.
it. I'm
but-
not gonna
judge you. I'm not gonna like judge you or like it's not like a relationship not being able to hang out or be like, it's more of just I think this is a flaw, personally.
Yeah.
It's not any big thing. You can be a super nice person, do all these great stuff. Like, I don't want to, because I know there might be some people who do this, listening to this. I'm not saying you should stop collecting. I'm not saying that you should.
It's just not optimized. It's not optimized.
It's just not optimized, and from my outside perspective,
here's
like
what I would add to just conclude this is no matter how you collect, no matter how you proceed with any hobby, make sure you're doing it with intent and not habit. Like, even if you get a shit ton of stuff and you have a huge collection, just do it with intent and not
make sure
habit.
that's really what you were planning on doing. Like, don't let it get out of hand.
That's all I would say.
Because, like,
that's all I would say.
There's a couple people, I'm going to actually name them because this is the positive examples, is Dino Scream and Killer Shrew Fan are actually two of the last, like, review channels I, like, kind of loosely watch. I don't watch reviews anymore, so it's not anything against you guys that make reviews. I just don't like reviews. I just don't watch
reviews anymore either.
Killer Shrew Fan's the only dude that I'll pop on and see his stuff every now and then.
Reviews are very much they're very much videos of utility to me.
Yes, and those guys...
Oh, they're super useful. I'm totally like, with Annie's Dinosaurs reviews and Dino Scream and all this, I'm like, keep making reviews. Like, every time I'm like, I don't know if I want to buy this figure or not, I go and I look up a bunch of reviews. I just don't watch them just cuz anymore. Mm-hmm. I only watch them if I want to get the thing.
Also, they do a great job, because if you do want a general opinion on them, obviously, I mean, I mostly make my own opinion, so I'm not, like, requiring opinions, but when I would like to hear someone else's opinion, it's nice to hear someone who will actually scrutinize stuff. Like, there was a lot of people in the community, and like the biggest one, Jurassic Collectibles, like, they got really big, but they were just, there was just no honesty anymore. It was just a showcase, they just wouldn't scrutinize the face.
There are a lot of big review channels that end up being showcase channels, because reviewing, like, the critique and the scrutiny kind of goes away. It's more just like, here's this thing, and let me just kind of passively compliment it and turn it around for you.
Which is fine.
And that's one of the reasons why I like Killer Shrew Fan, because he actually reviews stuff.
Yes.
He's not just a show. He's like, I like these things. I don't like these things, which I personally appreciate.
If you want to do
simple
showcases,
preferences
that's
being
fine.
made clear are nice.
If you want to do showcases, that's fine. It's just, don't label as a review, because you are
they're still useful.
You are literally lying to your audience. Reviews are something where you portray an opinion and you're trying to judge it. If you're just showing it off, label as a showcase. Don't be Jurassic Collectibles and falsely label it. Like, Jurassic Collectibles, respect to you and everything that you do, but I'm gonna be honest with you, you're just lying, and I don't think it's that cool. I think that if you're gonna make showcases, make showcases. Don't label as reviews. It's just not a review. Anyways, little tangent off.
I think, to be fair, like, it's a pretty common thing to where reviews of any product online are often, first of all, reviews of products online by large public figures are frequently sponsored and stuff.
Yeah.
And in general, it's very common for them to essentially just be a showcase of the product. So I think the term has kind of become looser for that kind of stuff.
That's
true. I do agree that in principle, a review should have some element of critique.
I still think that my point stands.
It makes
me
value the person. Yeah. It makes me value the reviewer more. Like, one reason I go back to Killer Shrew Fan a lot is because, sometimes there's even features of the model that you might not notice on just a video, and he goes in and he points stuff out, and I'm like, oh, I never thought of that, or I never pointed that out. That's a good point. Like, that's one reason why I like going to that, and it makes me value when he says something looks good. It actually makes me value that opinion more, because I know he doesn't just say that about everything. He only says it if it actually looks good.
And they'll point out the flaws. But getting back to what I was trying to talk about those guys for, is that they both clearly have. I've never seen a video where, like, they actually showed it off. If they have done it, I haven't seen it, so my bad. But I'm sure that they have really big collections, because they've gotten and reviewed, like, every figure I can think of that's, like, new and at that time. but they're doing it for a purpose. So that's a perfect example of like where I understand why you'd have a bunch of stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't
Me,
I don't even have a problem with like Andy's Dinosaur reviews is just the max level of I mean, he reviews everything, but it's his job.
Yeah.
It's his job.
Yeah.
So I'm like I can't really have too much judgment for that.
I know at least Killer Shrew Fan, he does sell his stuff afterwards. I mean, like, I literally have the Molophosaurus I have right now was his because our friend David bought it from him and as a gift for me.
That's a good point. So like, I mean, even Killer Shrew Fan is doing that. Yeah, but like a perfect example of like positive reinforcement, because we're not trying to. The point here is not to beat down people. If you're doing that, cool. We're just saying like. Because we were all, like, I think all of us, I can speak for all of us here, we were all finding ourselves in that loop. We were getting into the habit of doing that. That's why we're saying this. We're coming from the perspective of being like, hey, we should probably stop doing this. So just because if you're doing that right now, and we're just saying like, hey, like, maybe start optimizing how you're doing stuff, don't sit there and feel offended. We all did it. And, like, probably, odds are you probably weren't as bad as us. So, like, you know, just take solace in that. Anyways. Great positive
very often.
Any and all criticism I have for like becoming obsessive or hoardy with collecting stuff all comes from a place of me having done that and then stopped doing it.
This is more a we've been doing this for a little bit. Take our advice, young ones.
Yeah.
Kind of
exactly. Don't make our same mistakes, younglings.
But like Gibson actually gave me some positive reinforcement at one point because we were talking about it at some point, and that Gibson was saying, like, you are the BOTM guy, because I love BOTM, the line. And I think I may have acknowledged, I'm like, well, a lot of other people have a lot more figures than I do, like, they'll have the whole line. And Gibson was making a very valid point. He's like, yes, it is cool to have the whole line, but, like, you are kind of, like, in that spot where, like, you have a lot of it, and you're clearly a huge fan of it, but it's obvious that you are selective because you're not buying everything, so it kind of makes it a little bit more valuable in that sense because you clearly can see that the person's still picking and choosing stuff. They're just really passionate about a lot of it. And I think that's kind of where I'm at with it. I've never intended to, like, what would you call it? Ultimate Collect BOTM, but I'm a huge fan of it. I mean, I'm buying so many Ceratopsians because when I get them, I'm like, I got my money's worth out of this, and I just love it.
Oh, hell yeah.
And so I want more.
Well, because, I mean,
they're absolute.
The BOTM, I mean, there
incredible.
are some figures that is in the BOTM online that I actively don't like. I mean, I love a lot of them, but there's some that I'm just like, I don't want that.
I agree.
Yeah, but... because we kind of brought up BOTM. I just want to say how awesome BOTM is real quick.
I literally have a thing in my notes that just says BOTM is the best.
My note is BOTM is my new favorite thing.
Yes, BOTM. Hold on, I'm going to stand up real quick. I'm going to grab my packy so I can look at it while I talk.
Excellent.
This thing, dude, BOTM... and more specifically, getting this Pachyrhinosaurus was kind of the thing that made me go, really made me go, I don't need a lot of cheap safari stuff. Because this is awesome. I'm like, this was $80. This is the most... safari stuff. This is the most expensive figure in my collection, but I don't regret it all. Because it's a beauty. It's big, it's huge, it's the biggest figure in my collection as well. It looks awesome. The articulation is really good. I mean, I have a couple complaints, but for the most part, it's awesome. And just the whole different lineup that he does. That's the other thing too, is the colors on BOTM.
Oh.
They're so bright. Like, I remember way back when I just had the subadult trike and the Zuni. I remember looking at them and comparing them to the collection of other stuff I had, and I was like, even some of the brighter figures I have, like the Safari Parasaurolophus, like these just are so much brighter. Like, they stand out. And then I got the Casmo, which we've all, we jokingly call the Casmo the Beacon because it's just so brightly colored. Like I think your dad Gibson even said like it looks almost like it's making its own light because it's so bright.
Yeah.
It's
I'm the
Yeah,
only one
I mean,
that hasn't independently thought of it that way, but that's because I've always owned the Medusa with it, and so the Medusa's always been brighter than it on my shelf. And now I have the Wendy as well, and the Wendy is brighter than it.
Yeah,
too.
those have a
I'm
lot
gonna
of
get the
like yellow and orange on them that really sticks
yes,
out.
they're definitely, and I didn't realize just how much I loved bright colors on dinosaurs until I got the POTM stuff. I'm just like, this is awesome. Like,
And
there's
by the way,
this pack
you're
dinosaur has
listening-
the turquoise belly.
You're listening to 3 people who were advocates for like more color on dinosaurs and for feathers on dinosaurs. So we were already into that kind of stuff. Like not like we weren't like religiously like everything needs to have feathers, but we were on the positive side of that shift. All 3 of us were like, oh yeah, we need feathers on certain dinosaurs. We need to think about them like in a wider scope of color because they weren't all just gray and green,
But
or black. But this was still shocking. Like just seeing them like this, it's like wow,
Yeah,
this looks
and
amazing.
as well, like some people, I've heard some people complaining about like the paint application and stuff, and I have to virtually smack all of you who do that because I'm sorry, but these figures are hand painted, which in my opinion just I will always prefer hand painted to non-hand painted. Like even though machine painted things will
I
look
didn't actually know they're
technically
hand-painted until
speaking like
right now.
better sometimes. Oh wow. Even though like machine painted stuff will look like better sometimes in terms of just the precision of the paint being applied to like teeth and eyes and small details and stuff, there's just a certain character and a certain richness to hand painting that
feel more
you
like
just
art.
can't get otherwise. And yeah, it makes it feel more like art. It makes you really feel all the craftsmanship that has gone into it because you just
yeah,
I don't know. It just gives it a certain character that I just adore. And with them being so vibrant and so impressively like patterned and brightly colored and stuff, and with it having the character of something that's hand painted while also being really just well put together for a hand painted thing. I mean, the paint is well applied as well, and it's just it all comes together to be my favorite paint work on anything I own. Like the sculpts are great too, and obviously their articulation is kind of the big selling point for them for the most part. But like to me, like I agree that the coloration and as well like from a craft standpoint, the paint work is like honestly my favorite thing about that whole series.
I definitely appreciate largely the look. I am not. You two are a lot more crazy about articulation than I am. Like I'm kind of put them in a pose and then leave them in that pose and then just look at them like a normal figure.
But you get to pick.
You get to pick it.
I get to pick the pose, which is true, and it is awesome. But I also want to say, like, I know I'm talking like I love the BOTM Ceratopsians, but I want to point out, for me at least, that I love the Ceratopsians, but I'm not as anywhere near as big a fan of the Raptors. Just because like the Ceratopsians to me is revealed.
I feel like the Ceratopsians made me less of a fan of the Raptors because the Ceratopsians are so much better.
I'm not the biggest fan of the featheration on the Raptors to begin with. I don't think it really looks that realistic to how feathers really look. But regardless of that, my biggest issue with them is just they're so difficult to work with articulation-wise.
Yeah.
Because it's basically impossible to get them to stand on their own. And even with posing rods, it's kind of a pain. But these dudes...
Oh, they're a pain in the ass. They stress me out on my shelf. Like, I don't even want to, like, shake the shelf or walk by too fast as to create a stiff breeze.
The
like I'm gonna kill them on accident.
Are just so like you basically I've never had issues posing them where they've fallen over because they're so even just that third limb, even if you just have 3 limbs on the ground, just makes them so much more stable. And
I've posed them with just 2 limbs on the ground multiple times, and it works.
They're more stable with just 2 limbs.
And I didn't realize just how much them being stable really mattered to me until I got the Ceratopsian. Just like, this is really, really nice.
Which
is one of the reasons why I'm a little more concerned about the Tyrannosaur series coming out, and why though I'm definitely going to get a couple, I don't think I'll get as many as I'm getting for the Ceratopsians, just because I'm like, if they can't stand that well, I'm kind of out.
Yeah, that's gonna kill it big, like much more for me. But I also just inherently, I'm putting my faith in him because David Silva is an amazing creator, and he is really he does amazing work, and he really cares. You can feel that all these figures are genuinely coming from a place of passion. And he has actively tried to improve them. So I'm confident that he's really going to try to fix that. And like even the Psittacosaurus is a perfect example. He really thought that one was going to be able to stand, and he was still able to get his like Psittacosaurus, like the final production model, to be able to stand, but it wasn't reliable enough. And he's like, no, everybody needs a base. I do not want to I can't sleep at night knowing that these guys are going to take nosedives off of people's shelves. He actively wanted to try to like fix that and make amends with it, so he delayed them and he gave them some bases, and so he is trying his best for everybody, but I am still a little bit more nervous with it. My bigger thing with the Tyrannosaurs, I just genuinely, like, this is a personal thing, and I know that I'm probably going to get crucified by everybody because this is a very unpopular opinion, but I think Ceratopsians are way cooler than Tyrannosaurs, and I think Tyrannosaurs are just
agree.
like really samey. And also the fact is that I think that personally, hot take, like, you can get objectively, like, they could get better with paint and like articulation stuff. I don't think that the series will ever peak higher potential wise than the Ceratopsian series, because the Ceratopsians are literally like the designer animal from the Mesozoic. Like, it's literally just pick your head shape. Like, they're literally just evolved designer animals. They were perfect choices for this line. I'm so glad he did it. I don't think it's ever going to be a better combination.
The combination of picking animals which are quadrupeds, which just objectively works better with this articulation system, and picking ceratopsids, which are so visually striking and so polymorphic and diverse, it was the perfect opportunity to just really bring the line to life and just take it to another level. And I agree that, I mean, I won't speak definitively, but like, I could very much... I wouldn't be surprised if the line never really peaks higher for me personally than it has with this series.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, I definitely will say I don't think the Tyrannosaurs are going to peak the Ceratopsians, but I mean, who knows what he's got in the store next? I mean, I wouldn't think the Tyrannosaurs are going to be his last thing.
No.
I bet he's going to do some other line after that. I personally think a Thyreophorine line would be really good.
Yes.
Thyreophorines or Pterosaurs, those ones would be the ones that could...
Yeah, if he could somehow make a way to get the membranes to work, even if they don't work like super well, if they at least work pretty decently, I'll be pretty satisfied.
He can use cloth.
Pterosaurs are literally kind of also... They're kind of like Ceratopsians, since that they're pretty designery. Like, there's a lot of diversity among them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can do a lot of different things. Because that was another complaint I forgot to bring up before about the raptors. Is the raptors are very samey in a lot of ways. It's kind
if you don't look close, they all look like the same sculpt.
They do have a lot
just
of
pick whatever color you want. And that's because, I mean, with the raptors, though this is definitely a better decision because this was his first line, pretty much none of them have unique bases. I mean, there's like the Blar Bondoc has like 2 claws and stuff, but for the most part, every single piece can be found on at least one of the other raptors. And that kind of adds to
besides them
heads feeling samey. No, the heads, he reuses a lot of the heads.
Well,
I was under the impression that most of them had unique head sculpts, besides like the fans' choice stuff.
Well, I know that
the
a lot of
repaints
them
have the same head
like
sculpt,
the Dromaeosaurus and the Pyroraptor, I'm pretty sure have the exact same.
Oh no, they do not. They do not. I assure you, 100%, they do not.
I have both of those. They're not the same.
No,
got it. Never mind. Forget about me. They look similar that in my head I thought they were the same.
I can absolutely understand why you thought that they reused head sculpts more often, because a lot of the heads are similar, but I'm pretty sure the majority of them are unique.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's still kind of the point, though, is that they're similar enough that I thought they were the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And you're a dinosaur fan. So you're a fan.
Whereas Ceratopsians are all like, there's just a lot of diversity there, which I really adore.
The only spot that I am a little bit unsure of is with the 2 species of Velociraptor, but other than that, like I know that every single different genus in the whole line has a completely 100% unique head sculpt. The only exception is that I am pretty sure that there is some subtle difference between Velociraptor mongoliensis and Allsmolske, but I don't know. I could be wrong on that one. So I think even those two have different.
I'm not
head
sure.
sculpts,
Yeah,
but I don't really know. But I know that all
I'd
the
have to
other
look
ones,
again.
like the different species of different ones, like I don't actually know. Do the two different Sornitholestes have different species? Listen, I don't know. Either way, I think even if the other ones that do have different species but are the same genus, they do have the same head sculpt. But they might have had like an extra fan attached to its head or crest attached to its head.
Yeah.
The heads are all unique. Yeah.
Oh, okay, got it.
But
yeah,
the
I mean,
point
in
stands,
general,
though. They look very samey.
The point does still stand. Which I mean, like, I'm not buying the ceratopsians based on like specific genuses, because I mean, like, I bought one of the ones I backed on the back here was Spiclipius, which I'd never heard of before until the backer kit thing, until the Kickstarter. But it kind of more so goes, even though I'm not selecting them genus wise, I am definitely more selecting them color wise.
Yes.
Having them all together and having that diversity of appearance, I think, is really one of the biggest things for me.
Yes,
because they all
make
look
fantastic groups for
as
the
well
shelf.
as coloration difference.
I mean, one of my favorite ceratopsians,
and they're in scale,
Ionosaurus.
which I also love. I didn't realize until this line either that I just adored stuff being, if not exactly, roughly in scale.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
roughly in scale. But
having that group of animals that's like all roughly in scale, super vibrant and diverse. Just like the shelf presence of getting a decent amount of the figures from the series and just putting them together as like a group is just it works so well.
When those he's making a little 1/18 scale Protoceratops, Psittactosaurus, and Raptor. I'm definitely getting all those because I've realized just how much I love having stuff in scale, and I'm just like, I'm getting all of you guys so I can have everyone in scale.
I think he's making the Dromaeosaurus, Lioniraptor, and the Velociraptor.
Yes.
Yeah, those are the first three he's doing. He'll probably do more, but that's where he's starting.
Hopefully. But the like with even like Ionosaurus is one of my favorite ceratopsians of all time. I love Ionosaurus, but I'm not a big fan of I like the colors a lot on the BOTM Ionosaurus, but the head sculpt, it's just nose is really squished, and it's just and I'm just not really sold on it. Its face just looks really off to me, and its beak is, I think, pretty small. I think that the beak is undersized, but either way, it looks off to me, and I'm like, that sucks, but I'll pass on it. So it's more like how it looks in presentation rather than what genus it is.
More so for me with the Einio is I just don't like its colors.
Oh, really? I really like the colors.
I don't like it. I think its colors, I'm not the biggest fan of them.
I liked the colors more. I mean, in general, it's kind of at a disadvantage for me because it's one of the less vibrant ones, but I liked them decently on the prototype because they kind of burnt orange was more prominent, but the final one, that seems to be more desaturated and it's mostly just the grays and stuff, and it still looks neat. There's something kind of pleasing about it, but it just doesn't really stand out among most of the other ones.
Definitely one thing I do want to note about them is if you're looking at pictures of them and stuff, I highly recommend you look at stuff in hand, because one of the, I don't know if I can call it a complaint, because it's kind of just naturally, if you're going to mass produce stuff, you can't do as well as a prototype. But the paint jobs look different on the prototype versus
they do.
The
Sometimes they look legitimately better. Like the Styracosaurus is a great example of one I bought where I love the final one so much more than the prototype.
I think I like the Centrosaurus the same way. I like the final one better than the prototype.
Same.
But like the Packy, even though I love this Packy, I do personally prefer the prototype paint job to this. Though just because it's kind of, it's got a lot more blending, and I think the teal's even brighter. It's got like brighter colors.
The red is a lot
brighter. The red's brighter.
The red is a lot lighter and more saturated on the prototype.
I'm on the opposite end. I like the final one better just because
I kind of like it too. I like the darker red, but I don't have a strong preference. I can kind of see preferring the other one.
Yeah. I think the only reason I guess I don't super strong prefer it, but I definitely fairly strongly prefer the final version, is because one thing that really bothered me about the prototype is that while I liked everything about it, my brain just couldn't ever stop looking at the fact that the subtle blue on the face was just sky blue, while the blue on the rest of it was like an aqua or cyan. And I was like, it didn't fit the color palette, and I'm like, it was really bothering me. But in hand, it's a lot more close to the actual body. Like,
the two shades of blue are a lot more similar on the final one.
Yeah, so that really helped me, because there's nothing
and
my brain is freaking out about.
Just because we're doing some
brain.
flaws of the BOTM line. Another one of the flaws I have with the ceratopsians is that a lot of them can't move their heads down that far. Like the Packy, I think especially an offender this. Like, I know you guys can't see it, but like its head can barely move below the horizontal. Like literally just barely. And to me, I'm kind of just like, really? You made ceratopsians and you made it so that they can't butt heads with each other? Because they can't drop their heads that low.
I do wish they were better at that. Some of them are really good, like the Chasmo and stuff.
Oh, yeah. The Chasmo.
But yeah, like the Packy's one of the weaker ones there. It's still, you can get more range out of it if you like kind of twist it and play around with the neck piece a little. Like, I've been pretty impressed with what I've been able to get out of it, but I wish there was a little more inherent vertical range.
Nothing like I would personally desire. I would much desire if they were all like the Chasmo, because the Chasmo is like one of the few that actually does have really good neck mobility.
The Diablo
and the downward angle, I should say. That I really wish that there was more like that.
Yeah, I feel that. It's very dependent from one to the next. Like I have, how many do I have? 7, and they're wildly inconsistent. But so that's a fun surprise each time. Some of them are really, really good. Even the worst, I think the worst head mobility probably out of any of mine is the Styracosaurus, pretty unquestionably, and it's still pretty darn good, so can't complain too much. But yeah, oh wow, there's a bunch of fireworks going outside. It's the 5th of July. Shut up, go away, sit down, go to bed.
Oh, should we mention real quick the issue with the 4th of July?
Yeah, so we were gonna record this yesterday, and then collectively came to the realization that we were dumb.
I was looking at my calendar.
Eric
the other
made us realize that it was a problem.
I guess you're right. Yeah,
you
he
and
initiated.
I forgot.
We probably would have gone
looking
along with it.
Yeah.
My calendar, because I actually did just flip the calendar to July because I was a couple days late, and then I was like, just looking at it because I was like, oh yeah, we're going to record Sunday. And then I looked at Sunday and it said it had 4 on it. And I was like, wait a second. The Sunday's the 4th of July.
Abort.
We can't record that day.
Yeah.
So it'll be fireworks. So we're doing it the day after.
So if you hear a little bit of fireworks, just let them celebrate.
It's ambiance.
It's ambience, yeah. It's just
kaboom, kaboom. Boom, boom, kapow.
Part of the vibe.
Kablam. Yeah,
but,
I love me a good vibe.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I fucking love BOTM. Even with all those things that we were complaining about, it's like better than any other company that tries to compete with it.
Oh yeah, they're awesome. If you are to get figures, if you were to only invest in one company, I would say either BOTM or EoFauna.
Which is what I wanted us to talk about next, because I don't want to spend all our time on BOTM, but EoFauna.
BOTM is awesome though. If David Silva, if you're potentially listening to this, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for doing this. To conclude, your color schemes, your use of color and vibrant patterns is amazing. The craftsmanship behind the articulation and it's all just fantastic. These are some of the best things I've ever spent money on in my life. They are the most glorious pieces of plastic I can imagine.
I love you, dude. And also, if you ever want to be a guest on the stream, or not the stream, the podcast, then reach out. We'd love to have you. Genuinely would love to have you on.
I love if we're having this section, and then like he just never listens, because the odds are is he never will.
No,
who knows?
What would be better?
It's true, but
is if he comments in there, he's like, "Nah, fuck you guys," and then he does.
You guys are idiots. The Dinosaurs is my favorite.
That would be way better.
I'm pretty sure the Styracosaurus is his favorite.
I would still buy his figures, because fuck it. If he doesn't want to talk with me, that's cool. I'll still support him because his work is great.
Yeah, he deserves it.
Yeah.
But
anyhow, EoFauna.
Those things.
This is great.
As much as BOTM is definitively my favorite figure company, just because I just enjoy collecting them so much, and I can have so many I really enjoy. But second, very close second, and it debatably almost is my favorite, is EoFauna, just because of the fact that no other figure company, bar none, PNSO, sit the fuck down. BOTM, sit the fuck down. Anybody, you thought, any company that's rattling through your brain right now, sit the fuck down, because not a single company on this goddamn planet has ever made a dinosaur figure that more looks like a living thing that's gonna walk off your fucking desk than that fucking company. That company is just the best thing. Just period.
Oh my gosh.
EoFauna's level of detail and anatomical accuracy is absolutely ridiculous, and I've never seen another company do a better job bringing these things to life the way they do.
It's incredible.
They just have a magic.
I mean, they don't have, for people who maybe don't know about EoFauna, they don't have that many figures out. They don't make a lot of figures, but the figures they do make are just wonderful. I mean, they only have, hold on, I'm going to count real quick. 1, 2,
6,
math,
3, 4, 5, 6. If you count the repaint, 7, but 6 if you don't count, because they have 2 different paint variants of their trike. But yeah, I mean, they're just they're like the Paleoloxodon was my favorite figure in my collection for the longest time. Now I've have other really good stuff that has made me not sure as to what my favorite figure in my collection is. But I mean, they just do, their stuff is so good. Like you're saying, the anatomical accuracy, what these dudes do is they have a computer model. I'm assuming they 3D scan all the bones.
They make a
believe so.
But they 3D scan the bones so that they have a digital model of the actual fossils. They reconstruct the whole skeleton in the computer.
Muscle by muscle.
They have to add in some of the missing parts, because obviously for a lot of dinosaurs we don't have the whole thing.
But they research them. You can even buy their books. They have books where they've been doing research on every one of these species that they make.
They do the skeleton, they do the musculature of the skeleton, and then they do the skin. So they'll have like 3 different versions of their model.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But yeah, that you get because of that, you get such great anatomical accuracy. They really focus on making their things look like animals, not, they don't stylize them. They do like, hey, this is what the current science is pointing to this thing looked like. Let's make it look like that.
And yet they still look great with their colors. Like, the colors look incredible on them. I love them.
And they still, through all of it, make just attractive designs as well. And and their quality of, like, sculpting and stuff, in terms of, like, not so much from a science perspective, but just from, like, a model, like, art perspective, is getting a lot better, too. Because, like, their Giganotosaurus is actually possibly my least favorite figure of theirs, at least the least favorite of the ones I have. I don't have a couple of the Proboscideans.
I don't have the repainted. I don't have the dominant version of the trike. I'm not planning on getting that one, but I have all their other models, and I will personally say that, in my opinion, their Giganotosaurus, despite I think being their most popular figure, is their worst.
Yeah, and the big reason for me is just that it's pretty smooth. Some of the paint patterns are a little cartoony. They hadn't quite gotten that stuff dialed in. Their next figure they did after the Giganotosaurus, they had absolutely dialed that shit in. I just recently took this out for some photography in the mountains, and it reaffirmed that as much as I love BOTM, this is definitively my favorite figure in my collection, and that is the motherfucking Atlasaurus. The Atlasaurus is an absolute masterpiece, and I will search for it any day of the week.
Can we also say, first off, they made an Atlasaurus. I had never heard of Atlasaurus before they made this figure.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool move.
And it's such a, like, I remember we literally, when the pictures revealed for it, we're like, that's wrong. There's no way that's right. Because it's so, for people who don't see the figure, it's a really weird proportion sauropod. It's got, like, really long limbs. Like, imagine a Brachiosaurus, okay?
It's basically a giraffe.
Make its limbs longer. They give it even a longer tail than normal Brachiosaurus head has. But then, like, make the neck, like, a third the length. And that's what this thing looks like. It is so weirdly proportioned that we're like, that has to be wrong. But then you look at Atlasaurus skeletals and stuff, and you're like, oh, no, actually, that's what it looked like. They just chose a really weird-looking sauropod. And I just love that.
It's not only what they look like, it's dead on. Like, they nailed it. And also, just the head shape and everything about it, like, and just the portrayal of this animal has a like literally like overnight become one of my favorite sauropods. I didn't realize it at the time, but like I sat there and thought about it like months afterwards. I'm like, you know what? Ever since then, I think it's one of my new favorite sauropods. I just really love that thing. Like just that figure drilled that thing up into my favorites.
The detail is so nice, so realistic. The paint job's so well done, and the pose is so simple
elegant,
yet nice. It's just taking a stroll. It's just walking. It's not action
Elegant
pose,
is the word.
but elegant. But it looks so realistic. Like I think we've said before, it literally looks like, oh, this thing will start walking. Like it looks like you took a picture of this animal while it was moving.
The crazy thing is they don't even look like the Giganotosaurus may look like a CGI model, but this thing, the Atlasaurus and the Paleoloxodon, which are the best ones from the whole line, they literally, especially the Atlasaurus, because the Atlasaurus looks so dry and it doesn't even look shiny. It's like I'm looking at it like that's not even a CGI model. That just looks like the real animal. It's just gonna walk off
I know the finish they
desk.
put on it is. I love it when you go with a matte finish on stuff, and the going with the matte finish on the Allosaurus really adds a lot to it.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's weird how they didn't do that with the trike, but you know.
Yeah, the trike is a little glossier, but it still looks really good. The trike is my second favorite, honestly. I think I like it more than the Paleoloxodon right now, although it's very, very close. Speaking
of, again, making something that you wouldn't expect, they did not do a Triceratops horridus or Porsus. They did an unnamed species of Triceratops that's based on like 1 or 2 specimens. That's got like these huge horns. Like that was the other one where it's
weird
like,
head.
They revealed it, and I looked at it, and I was like, again, like with the Allosaurus, I was like, that's not right. The horns are too big. I showed this to my brother, who's not into dinosaurs, because I just got the trike, and he looked at it, and he was just like, why are its horns so big? Because they just look massive, but you look at the actual specimen, you're like, oh.
It's like the Texas Longhorn of Triceratops. Like it's
it is. But the specimen they based it on, Yoshi's trike, actually has horns this big. Like, and they went with this as their depiction of it, and I just love that they did that.
They took a genus that popular, and they still found a way to educate and do something unique with it. And even with that, this is something that I've like just so absent-mindedly like accepted in my like head canon, is that like we knew that Triceratops probably had like really big cheeks and pouches, and they didn't. They didn't put the big cheeks on the face of the Triceratops. It just has an open mouth, like with like almost like a theropod, like where the cheeks, if anything, are just like very like towards
the cheeks
the
are just kind of recessed back into the corners of the jaw.
Because I don't know I know that there's that one study, this is obviously what they're basing it on, that says that ceratopsians and hadrosaurs probably didn't have cheeks. I'm not too sure exactly what how strong their reasoning is for that study, but that's definitely what they're basing it on.
And for Triceratops,
they definitely made the point that they did not have. If they did have something there, it was like a thin membrane, kind of like what you can see on the side of this thing's mouth, on the trike's mouth. They did not have fleshy mammalian cheeks like the cheeks that we have or cows have. Like it was a skin membrane, and that was it.
And just
like the
seeing them make that
do a
decision.
good job with that.
Just seeing them make that decision too to make this really unique anatomical choice that's kind of based off of some specific research, and there's specific reasoning behind it, and it makes it look really striking, and it presents interesting concepts. It's just so cool.
Yeah, they didn't just pull this out of their ass. Like they had a reasoning for doing this.
No.
And while it may be proven at some point that Triceratops did have the more skin membrane like cheek, it's definitely not wrong. Like it's at at this current time, this is not a wrong depiction. It's just like a likely one.
And can I say that they painted that they gave it teeth, and the tooth row is so utterly thin in this thing that it's painted.
And it's not even that sloppy. Like it's not sloppy.
No.
It's so good. It's so
It's
good.
not even
I have 2 of them.
Yeah,
I
the
have
teeth
the
are
dominant and the
pretty
cryptic.
impressive.
How did they do this? I don't even know how they did. How do you even paint it that well?
I think they painted the teeth first, and then they painted the mouth around, and just tried to avoid like painting the teeth again.
Oh, dude,
Maybe.
that might have how they did it.
I don't know
That's a
how
smart
painting
way of
things
doing
works,
it
to
if
be
that's how they
honest.
did it.
Yeah, and I also like, because like we were saying, we don't know how credible or how like really rock solid, because like if it was a really rock solid debate, then you'd think that it would have been like taking the paleo community by storm, and like everybody would be now drawing their triceratops with like an open mouth. Obviously, I don't want to give people too much credit because they also focus on really stupid things like the tail of Spinosaurus and whatnot. But the mouth with triceratops also just inherently makes sense, because at this current moment we're like, okay, cheek or no cheek, both of them are okay. You can choose whatever you want. We don't really know for sure, but if you're gonna do a cheek, do it this way, that kind of thing. But the decision that since they decided not to do the cheeks, it also helps further emphasize I don't want to say it's like a really strong push, but there's definitely a subtle push by people like Mark Whitten and a lot of other people in the paleontology community, where they're like, hey guys, we have every reason to believe, and we're even starting to like, think a little bit more that ceratopsians were probably not entirely herbivorous, and were at least omnivorous, or maybe even like more carnivorous than just eating carrion. And so the idea has been finally starting to be a little bit more accepted by people, and especially with like the way that their teeth work and the fact that they have hooked beaks. These things just are characteristics that like it's so funny, because I remember in some documentaries as a kid, people would start like, they would describe triceratops teeth like, oh, they're like shears and they'd cut through plants. But like, actually, plant eaters don't actually have back rows of teeth that like cut up plants like that, and it's more of a carnivorous trait. And that's something that Mark Whitten was writing about in his big, I read this huge article he was talking, I think he was using Styracosaurus as his, like, actually I don't think maybe it wasn't explicitly that, but it was in his piece, his art piece that he drew for it, was Styracosaurus eating something. And
he also drew one of a trike.
Yeah, but like that the way that the teeth work in ceratopsians is actually, well, it's not like, what most carnivores actually go for. It's not explicitly good for herbivorous eating, and it actually would work pretty good for meat. And so that's a big reason why we're like, hey, they probably were a lot more like, wild boar or like hippopotamus, and they're not like explicitly eating, herbivorous material, and they're like eating some other stuff too. And so it's pretty cool that they depict them that way, because it works better for that.
I mean, for me, I'm in the situation where I'm like, I think it's, for me, I'm like, I see like the evidence you're going on. I'm definitely not saying it's wrong. It's one of those things where I think, like, especially you sometimes put it, Aydin, where you seem very sure that like these were omnivorous, where I'm like, well, they might have been. Your reasoning is, like, yeah, if like they, I'm trying to word it right. Speculative wise,
it's speculation.
Like it's plausible. Like it would 110% could have turned out that these, like, half their diet was meat. Like I wouldn't be surprised, but I think definitively saying, oh, these were omnivores, I think is a little overconfident.
That's not what I'm saying here. I'm saying that I like that they're depicting it in a manner that reflects the idea that, hey, they could have been like this. Me personally, I am convinced, but I'm gonna give you a dick-ass reason for this, because it's the same reason I'm convinced that every herbivorous animal has eaten meat, and it's because every herbivorous animal does eat meat.
Yes. I mean,
occasionally.
That's the point I'm getting at. Yes, of course, a triceratops would have eaten an animal at some point.
Yes.
Every herbivorous, you can find a video of almost any herbivorous animal today. Like
I've seen videos of deer eating birds out of nests.
Yes.
It's fucking cursed.
Yeah. You'll see herbivorous animals go and eat carrion of carcasses. I mean, like, of course that would have happened at some point, but I think it's more so like a claiming that this was a common thing that they did, I think is more of the point where I'm like, yeah, maybe, but who knows?
But the reason why I'm ecstatic about it is because it just makes a ton of sense in their case. So it's a really cool thing, because just it's one of those rules of nature where you look at anything with a beak, anything with teeth, it's like, yeah, this doesn't really add up. But not that I'm saying that it's a fact, but it's kind of like the same thing where I look at as like, we now have a lot of reason to believe that T-Rex probably didn't have feathers all over it while it was an adult, or like didn't even have much of feathers if it did. But when we found out Eutyrannus had feathers, everybody's like, oh, we should probably be starting to consider that T-Rex might have been covered in feathers too. It's the same kind of thing. We're looking at ceratopsians now. We're like, oh, they could have been, eating a lot of like meat. So we should probably keep that in mind. And I like that they depict it in a manner that like makes a little bit more sense if we find out one day that Triceratops, was eating a ton of meat, well, then not having cheeks makes more sense. That it's just a really good way of going about it.
It is important to remember that I'm always amazed at how much we know about prehistoric animals. It's always important to know that there are big gaps in our knowledge, and there are definitely a lot of these animals were 100% doing things or looked in ways that
we can't imagine,
that we just can't know. And like I said, with the carnivory thing, if you wanted to pick the Triceratops eating meat, go for it. There's no evidence saying that that's wrong, but I think it's a little, just make sure you're not saying that, as with anything in speculation, make sure you're not saying that this is how it was. Just saying it's
not fact.
Yeah, exactly. Or like with another thing with ceratopsians and sauropods, actually this also applies to, is how they have really big nasal openings, which in modern animals with larger nasal openings have them because they have a lot of soft tissue features around them. So like if you look at a mammal nose in like the skull of the head, they have these really big nostril openings, and that's because like basically the whole tip of the snout in a mammal is basically cartilage and soft tissue. And so whereas when you look at animals that don't have that, they usually have really small nostril openings. So because of that, I do think you can make, similar to the carnivory thing, you can make an equally valid claim that sauropods and ceratopsians had something going on with their nose that we just don't know yet because we don't have any soft tissue of, because they have, especially in ceratopsians, their nostril openings are just massive. They're way bigger than they need to be. Which I think is
really good point.
And that's why you see a lot of reconstructions of both those families, particularly ceratopsians, with like big air sacs and stuff along the snout, and things like that. Or just like
puffed out, like rather than being convex or concave, they're convex. Like you can see there's a lot of space. There's stuff going on.
A surprising number of people have drawn sauropods with trunks for some reason. I guess that's acceptable.
I'm not too sure about that, because when you look at animals with trunks, like elephants and tapirs, like
they usually have more obvious adaptations for that stuff, I would imagine. Yeah, they have more muscle scars
for that. If it's something where it's just like you have cartilage, like on your nose and stuff like that, there's no muscle attaching there, you often don't have that much osteological features for it. But if you have something with muscles, those muscles got to attach somewhere.
Yeah.
And they're going to, and you'd see the evidence of that.
Noses that can flex. They're juiced. They're not just, they got to have evidence for that juicery.
Yeah, you can look at, elephant skulls and stuff, and you can see lots of evidence for, this thing had a trunk.
Well, I think the Greeks, they just looked at an elephant skull or a mammoth skull and they're like, oh, it's a cyclops! Yeah!
But they hadn't exactly gone through a whole bunch of comparative anatomy.
But it obviously is a cyclops.
It obviously is a cyclops. Anyway,
okay.
Moving back on to EoFauna, which has proboscideans.
Do we have anything more to say about EoFauna? Because I do have in my notes one final thing I want to touch on before we're too... not that we have a hard time limit on this, but we have been going for a decent amount of time, and I have one final thing that I want to get off my chest.
Oh, yes.
I think I know what we're talking about, and I
want to talk about this, too. Because there's the three big ones that I want to talk about. We talk about BOTM, EoFauna, and then the next one.
Yeah, of the those are the three big, more adult-oriented collecting thing. They're not trying to go, like, even though Safari and Collecta... Yeah, as far as, though Safari and Collecta do have a lot of appeal to collecting people, they obviously, I do get the feeling, still want to make it so kids can buy it, which is why they're cheap.
Yeah. Whereas, like, PNSO's figures are literally razor sharp and will cut your children.
Yes, like, EoFauna, BOTM, and PNSO are definitely like they are made for collectors.
They're aimed at
they
adult
are not
collectors.
made for toys.
Yeah, and there are other companies that are also aimed at adult collectors, but those are largely like your Nanmoos and W Dragons, like all your rip-off Jurassic Park companies, basically. Of the ones more,
I think they're just not
oriented on being accurate, quote unquote. It's mostly like PNSO and EoFauna and stuff.
Freaking W
being
Dragon
accurate
is so
and
weird.
also just being prevalent. I hear about those three a lot more than any other ones.
Yeah, W Dragon is so funny because they're like one of the few rip-off stories where they're like, oh yeah, we're just like blatantly ripping off a massive franchise, and then they get actually licensed by that franchise officially.
Yes!
Like they actually got licensed by Universal, which is so fucking stupid.
Incredible.
Because like they literally sat there, they're like, hey, you've been doing this illegally? Like, kind of, but you're like, you're technically safe because there's little loopholes or whatever. I almost said wormholes. There's wormholes. The little loopholes you can do.
There's a wormhole in the contract.
Whatever. You're already doing a good job, so might as well, like, try to get some money in for ourselves while you're doing this.
I love that. They're just like, we can't stop you, but you do good stuff. So just, we'll officially give us money.
When you really think about it, they're basically just saying, hey, we want some of that. Give us some
also,
money.
Real quickly, I will say I'm salty that W Dragon got officially licensed and not Nanmoo, but that's a story for another time. My final section in my notes here is a section called List of Shitty PNSO Duds. And so PNSO has been on a tear of releasing way more figures than I can keep up with financially for like half a year now. And of this whole new crop of figures, there's been a lot of hype and excitement, and a lot of people have been just talking. They've been something that's been discussed a lot in the collecting community as it's been happening. And a lot of them are really, really good. And for a while, people were generally praising the majority of them, and I didn't see much of a reason to interject because I mostly agreed. Even some of the ones I wasn't a huge fan of, nothing screamed dud necessarily.
Yeah.
And to be frank, their consistency is getting worse, and I feel that I need to step in and correct violently the mistaken opinions of fools.
Before you do, can we slowly build up our opinion of it? Because I want to talk about how we started with PNSO and then how we got here.
Yeah. Go, you take it away with the history of our thoughts on this company.
Okay, because I know that we were all kind of late to the game, and what I mean by that is because technically PNSO has been around for a long time, but they kind of took a big hiatus and then they came back. I want to say around 2018. Don't quote me on the numbers.
I think
it's
so.
around there. So they came back and they were making a bunch of big models, and they were really cool because they're museum quality and properly museum quality for a negative trait that I'm going to bring up right now, and that's that they have really good objective quality, but their accuracy will just shit the bed sometimes. A perfect example is
not always and randomly.
Not always and randomly.
In weird ways.
The fucking PNSO Spino. Brace yourself if you haven't heard this before, but the PNSO Spinosaurus has opposable fucking thumbs, and I shit you not. That actually exists. It's on the thing. It's a good look.
It's on my shelf. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, it's a good figure, but it's fucking weird. And there's always
really
something.
Weird.
Go ahead, Eric.
It's I don't want to take your mojo from this. I'll let you say the word that you use to describe a lot of PNSO figures. The phrase.
Oh yes. Okay, you want me to say it? I think the perfect word to sum up PNSO is that they are cursed. Because cursed to me is it's not like Papo is a good distinction because a lot of people have compared them. Papo is really got this attitude to it, and they're so awesome, bro. They're just always posing and doing these crazy things, or they're taking a shit or something. They're a weird batch of figures. But PNSO is they're always walking the line. They're so close to being an accurate figure. They're so good, so close to being a lifelike representation. But they always find one thing, no matter how tiny. Some of them are bigger than others, some of them are smaller. But there's always one little thing you can point out. You're why? Why is that there?
They're subtly cursed though, because it's like you said, it's
that's what
one
cursed
or two
is,
things.
kind of. Yeah, it's always just a little thing. It's just you're kind of cursed. There's just something off about you, and sometimes I can't even tell what it is.
And so the development on this has been that pretty much starting with the new Wilson, we'd been continuously getting impressed with their improvement because most of their new figures in this like recent massive wave have been just getting better and better, and not everything's been perfect. There's still some very, very subtle cursedness occasionally, but like they really seem to be moving in a good direction.
Yes.
And
I
then
like
the
their Wilson
Helicoprion
model.
came out. And the Helicoprion marks the beginning of the end, in my opinion. This is the ugliest fucking shark I've ever seen. Its little jaw is like so undersized. It's got this gross brown cartilage in its upper mouth. It's just so lumpy and just awful.
But
it's just
again,
viscerally awful.
It's like the curse thing where it's like the body is like fine, but then the head just is like, what happened to its face?
It's also
I'm panning along an image of it on my computer. I'm like, nice tail, nice abdominal shape. Look at those pectoral fins. And then the face is just,
you know what this reminds me of? I look at that goddamn thing, and like how everybody makes fun of the fact that Jaws sticks his goddamn head out of the water and he fucking roars like a shark roars. This thing looks like it's gonna stick its fucking dumbass face out of the water, and it's just gonna be like a grandma screaming at a supermarket. It's just me like,
well, also I'd like to point out how the tooth whirl, part of this is tooth whirl is like real. I don't know why it's so small. It's like
so
half the size
undersized.
it should be.
It's so puny. It is horrible. It is atrocious. I'm sorry, like, out of anything on this guy, we're gonna talk about all, like, a bunch of shit here, but I'm sorry, like, to each their own, you can have your own opinion, but if you actually think this is a good figure, I want to slap you, because I can't, that's coming from me personally, I don't speak for the other guys, but I think you're an idiot. I'm gonna be honest. I can't, this
my
is disgusting.
Why is the question?
Yours.
Yes, it does, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I think you're kind of an idiot, because I can't get it. This figure is so disgusting.
I won't say that you're an idiot if you like it. I will say that people's affection for this figure is authentically baffling.
I'm going to say what Gibson just said. I agree fully.
It's baffling. Next on the list. Now, I will say, there are actually a lot of people that hated on this figure. So this first pick of the Helicoprion is not super controversial. This is not the hottest of takes. The next one is where I think I get into my slightly hotter takes. The next thing on my list is literally just, what the fuck, is that a Eutyrannus? And this one just makes me sad, because I love Eutyrannus, and this is not a wholly bad figure. I think this is actually the best figure on my list of duds. It's like barely a dud. It's more of a dud now that I've seen the in-hand pictures of it, because the promo images kind of gave me more hope than it deserved. Yes. This thing, look, it's got some problems. The pose is kind of cool, kind of weird. It's somewhere in between for me. It's just out there. It's an interesting pose. The jaw, like the way the articulation on the jaw connects and that big like rounded bit near the jugal area, like there's some weird shit to the skull structure, but it's not like terrible. The feathers look really cool. The texturing and the coloration and stuff. The feathers are really well done. But that head, man, and the thing is, from some angles on the promo images, the head doesn't even look that bad, but seeing it in person, it just seals it for me that this is just...
it looks horrible.
They just messed it up. In hand, it just looks horrible.
I was already complaining about it from the promo picture, like, because I've been wanting another Eutyrannus, like, because the Safari one's been, like, our only option, like, ever. I'm not including the Rebor one.
It doesn't count. It's the Papoallosaurus. It doesn't count.
Wait, who's Rebor? What?
I don't know.
I've never heard of this.
You know what? I
piece of
forgot. It was in my head a second ago, and it's just gone now.
I've never heard of Rebarf. Wait, what? Who said that?
Rebarf? Correctness.
Rebarf. That's But I looked at this thing, and I'm like my brain, yet again, the curse thing. We're going back to the curse thing, because I looked at it, and I'm like, I want to be excited, because I'm like looking around on this thing. I can't find anything wrong with it, but my brain is telling me that this is not a Eutyrannus. And then I finally found it, and that's that. Like, even the head shape wasn't the biggest thing. In hand, it actually ended up being way worse. But the thing just has no crest. There's just like, there's
that's
nothing
the first
to
thing
it.
I thought when I looked at it. I was like, why is there crest? Just so you know, guys, like, I have not studied these as much detail as these guys had. So I just have the Amazon page up, and then like Gibson's like, we're going to talk about the Eutyrannus. I'm like, okay, I found the Eutyrannus. And then I immediately get on it. I'm like, whoa, there's some small crests this thing's got.
It's got nothing. It looks like a Carcharodontosaur. Like when you take away that's another thing probably is that its head shape. That should have told me earlier on that like its head shape was a little bit more off, because when I kept looking at its head, I'm like, it looks like a feathered Carcharodontosaurus or something. Like it doesn't look like a Tyrannosaur completely to me.
It does
Obviously,
not.
It's got the bigger muscle towards the bottom of the mouth, but like the top of it especially just looks really rounded.
Now, the reception on the Eutyrannus, from what I could tell, was kind of just typical. I didn't see a ton of hype, but I didn't really see any hate. It was just kind of another figure in the mix. The next one on my list got a ton of fucking excitement, and it genuinely just, I can't even deal with it. This Tarbosaurus makes me want to just throw my face into a brick wall. Oh, Lord, he coming. He a mega chonk, super cosmic fucking chonk up in here. This thing...
Where's the Tarbosaurus? Oh, wait, you mean the beetroot with legs? Oh, okay, I found it. Never mind.
It is remarkably bad, in my opinion. This Tarbosaurus, like, first of all, there's other problems with it besides the chonkiness. I don't like the head. I think the head just looks off. The shaping, it's like a little too thin and so long, and just it's got these weird crunchy, like warbly bits to its like shape and its jawline.
Trying
and it's
to be a Spinosaur, guys. Don't ruin his dream.
The base of the skull is weird. And then also like the neck is really the neck exemplifies how overly bulky the body is, because it looks so short. And it gets so much wider where it connects. Yeah, like it's skinny where it attaches to the head, and then it like widens awkwardly into the shoulders, and that just leads into the body. Which, I mean, oh my god, the torso, the thick ass ankles, the big oversized feet. Like this is just the most obese thing I've ever seen in my life.
I'm noticing is the body doesn't actually look, and just let me finish my sentence before you say anything. The body doesn't actually look terribly too big. It's the fact that the head proportion to the body is way too small. Like if you made the head and neck with it, obviously,
I genuinely do think it has a bit of shrunken head syndrome going on.
I think it would because I look at this and I'm thinking of
look
like
at the skeletal reconstruction they have there.
The Sue and other stuff. Yeah. I'm like, I think that the body, like if I just look at the body, I'm covering up the head with my hand right now. I think it looks fine. But when you add the head on it, the head's just too small for the body. It needs to be bigger. The feet are honestly, also huge,
like, the torso is too deep, in my opinion. The torso is just massive. But yeah, there's this angle on the Amazon page I'm looking at now that's like a front angle, and the ankles and the feet are just insane. It's just over the top. It's beyond the pale. I can't believe what I'm looking at.
There's some, for me, the Carnotaurus really bothered me more than it bothered a lot of other people. But, like, I could understand some of the issues that happened there. I'm like, okay, I can understand. Like, you didn't do as much research as you should have, or you weren't as, like, diligent to make sure that it was all, like, really shown there. Like, that's okay. Mm-hmm. But, like, this one infuriates me on a different level because clearly the sculptor was not thinking. Because, like, the fact that they sat there and they made Tarbosaurus more beefy than T-Rex, the theropod that everyone knows as being this big honk of murder, there's a problem when you make it thicker and chunkier and deeper and wider in every way than the freaking Wilson.
I think that you could fix this figure if you just made the head and obviously the neck longer and the head bigger and the ankles and feet smaller, and I think this would be great.
It would be great.
But it's really just got proportional issues.
It looks like, my final encapsulation of this figure is that it looks like when I used to draw dinosaurs as a kid and I didn't outline the whole body, so the proportions would be like completely warped by the time it was done. That's the vibe I get here. Like, I feel like he started with one part of the body and went over without really pulling back and looking at it, and then just didn't fix anything.
It is like, though, like, you know, the scale quality and the paint work looks really good on this. I will definitely say, I look at this, and I mean, as soon as I saw the pictures of it, I'm just like, ugh. Like, not only, but then hearing the fact that like so many people are like simping over this.
Yeah, this one got praised blindly by everyone.
I was like, it didn't make me angry because I don't get angry about this kind of stuff, but it confused me.
Yeah, exactly. It's baffling.
I'm just like, I don't see where you're coming from at all. I'm sorry. This thing, it just looks weird.
It's so
and
weird.
like that's not their opinion rubbing off on me, because I did 100% think that when I first saw it, just without them. I was just like, oh, that doesn't look right.
Nope.
I think
Okay,
I literally shared it in our Instagram group chat, and I just said LOL or something, or LMAO.
Yes, I remember that. You shared it and you said LOL, and it was just the picture of the head, and I thought, oh, that looks pretty good. Why is he laughing? And then it zoomed out to the body, and I just went, oh no. Like, oh, what the fuck happened here? Whoopsie. Oh my god.
It was so funny, because I also saw the head first, because I clicked on that post, and then, like, I'm not going to name who it was, whose post I was looking at, but I was reading, like, the description, they were, like, really praising it, saying, oh, yes, another quality figure, and then I, like, fucking swiped through, and I saw the fucking beetroot image, as I like to call it, where you see the lump of it, and I'm like, what? I remember covering up my mouth. It's that kind of shock, where, like, people, like, cover up their mouth going, oh! I literally grabbed my face with one hand, and I was like, what is that? What is that? Like, what the fuck is that?
Dude,
it's so
oh my god. Oh my
god.
god.
It's just so funny.
Yeah.
I like, this is one, like, I hate the Helicopryon, right? But this one, I literally have a little bit of love for, just because it's so stupid. Like, I
agree.
I love it.
It has a little more charm to it. Although
It's
the
so
in-hand
dumb
images I've
looking.
seen, like, the promo images already did it in for me. Everything I've seen in hand just looks even worse. I saw an angle from, I think, like, Dino Scream's review, or maybe it was Killer Shrew Fan, one of those guys. And
Yeah.
I didn't actually watch the review. I just saw, like, a still from it, like an image somewhere on Instagram maybe, and it like really sealed its fate for me not wanting it at all.
The Helicopryon is just ugly. Like, it's just gross. It's like a bug that you'd find under your bed if you really blew it up under a microscope or something. It's just like, what the fuck? Are you can walk? Like, what is that? That's been under my... It's just so weird. But then the Tarbosaurus is just like, it's just stupid. It's like
It
Cooter.
is stupid. It is.
I've now
Well, it's even
pulled
got
up-
some anatomical problems in common with Cooter.
I've
It
now
does.
pulled up the Torvosaurus, because I didn't know
That's the
until
next one
literally
on the
this
list.
second that they're making a Torvosaurus.
Wait, you didn't?
No. Like, this is... I probably saw it and just skipped past it. This is like, oh, they're making a Torvosaurus.
This is
the next one
I'm
on
gonna
my
give my
list.
opinion real quick before you guys do.
Yeah, unfiltered.
Unfiltered.
The head doesn't look exactly like like, it kind of does, because I know Torvosaurus got
Yeah.
a long skull, but the crests don't look right.
Well, that's how
got
I was going to
Allosaurus
enter into this
crests.
section. Is I was going to say the reason the Tyrannus doesn't have more prominent crests is because they accidentally put them on this figure.
No,
The-
I want to agree with you, but I don't, because this is just Allosaurus but beefier. Like, it's just pretending to be an Allosaurus. Like, look at it. It's just got Allosaurus crests.
It's a longer.
I mean, that's what they are.
This one does look nicer. Like, the head just, it looks too
This one
It
is
looks
not
too
the
evil
worst
to
on my
me.
list.
to
Dude,
get.
yes. There is something cursedly like evil and almost like dragony about the Torvosaurus's
Yes.
face. And
Which,
this is what I was
kinda
going to
like
say.
that.
As
There was
someone, as someone who, I think, as I said before with EoFauna stuff, like, I really value animals looking like animals. I personally don't like, I think,
Yeah.
was it W Dragon that's made that Giganosaurus? I don't
Yes.
like that one just because it looks way too, it doesn't look like
It is a
real
very
thing.
awesome bro
If
one.
if you add any awesome bro features or make it like look evil or like a dragon or whatever, like, I'm out. And this one kind of, I'm getting the vibe from the head. Like, the body looks good, but the head just looks
The
too
body looks real nice.
dragony.
It sucks,
for me
because I
to
really
get.
want to pull the trigger on this one and just get it, because I love Torvosaurus. It's just one of my favorite dinosaurs. But, like, I honestly, like, and I see what you're talking about with the head. That doesn't bother me too much, because even it's just a name. It's just a name. I know that behavioral things don't come from the names that we humans like to give these rocks that are shaped like bones. But I do like, just in my head canon, attaching the word savage to Torvosaurus, and just really imagining this really mean motherfucker. I mean, it was a big carnivore, so it's not that crazy. But, like, I kind of like that he has a sinister
It kind of
look
works
to his
with the
face.
name meaning, I suppose. But for me, my bottom line with it is that, you were using cursed to describe a lot of the older PNSO figures. This is the first one in ages that feels subtly cursed to me. There's something about the face that makes me genuinely uncomfortable, and that's why it's on my dud list, because otherwise I think it would be more in the camp of, like, I don't know, one of the other ones that I'm just not a huge fan of, but that's not, like, super bad or anything, but just one of the weird ones. But, like, this one it gets onto my dud list because it makes me uncomfortable. I can't.
Eric, you're breathing into the mic.
Well, I'm not breathing into the recording mic, so that's fine.
It's fine.
Okay, then that's good. Then don't worry about it. They're like, what the fuck did you interrupt him for, Aydin? on Discord,
It's
he's
fine.
using a different mic.
But yeah, and then of course also just like the skull is not super accurate. You can see the accurate skull on the image on their like promotional art. You can see how it's wrong. The nasal shape and everything is totally off, and the jawline is wrong, and the crests are
the
way
nose
whack.
is literally in the wrong place. Now that you pointed that out, I can't even.
Oh shoot, you're right. The nose.
Holy
not only is the
shit.
nose in the wrong place, but like the snout doesn't go. Like it's not angled as much up. It's not as boxy as it should be.
And just the shape,
because wrong.
Because it does have that subtle sort of bump to the front of its snout, but like it's too pronounced and too weird, and the jawline doesn't like swoop convexly like it should. It just,
it doesn't look like the
shape is
collector
wrong.
model at all.
Also, I love that not even the speculative outline of it on the skeletal thing has a big crest on it, but you see that we actually have the part of the skull where the crest would be. Right there.
And it's not there.
It's not there. And it's like, why? Like, see, this one, just, like, you see how you can zoom in on the figure on Amazon? If you do that and you box it and just cut off the head, I look at that and I'm like, oh, I want it so bad. I want to be convinced. I keep looking at the head. I'm trying to convince myself to buy it. And I just can't because it just...
Honestly,
the body does look really nice.
The body looks nice, but this one image of where it's kind of facing more forward. It's the top image on the Amazon gallery on the listing. It just looks fucking sad, dude. Like, it just looks like it's going, "Rah," and its face just looks sad as fuck.
It's very straight. Like, it doesn't look very lively.
No, not at this angle, at least.
Nah, it's just... I really want to love it, and I was still trying to convince myself that I could be okay with the crests, but now that, like, Gibson unintentionally pointed out that the nasal, that literally the nose is in the wrong spot. He was saying the whole nasal shape, but the nose is literally in the wrong
nostrils
spot.
on animals can vary in placement from the nasal openings on the skull somewhat. I'm more it's still weird, but I'm mostly still concerned with just head shape overall, to be honest.
But the hole, like look at the skull. The hole was literally on the solid part of the bone where like you'd get like those little like holes in the skull that were like there to like
the pressure sensors.
Like the it's like for the blood supply and the nerve endings to like.
Oh,
to
I know.
I
forget what they're called. I know what you're talking about though.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
That's where that shit would be. Like the nostrils. Like I can understand a little bit. Like I think even with ceratopsians, we realized that we actually need to be portraying their nostrils towards the bottom of the nasal cavity, right? Like the openings or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we started doing that on everything. But like with this one, it's not even in the nasal opening. Like it's not even near it. It's not even on the border of it. It's literally down at the like the it's in the lip.
It is in the lip.
It's just so fucking weird.
Good God.
Just again, I'm scrolling through the Amazon stuff. This figure, I didn't know they were making this one either. This is I think I might have seen this before, but I totally forgot about it, and I can't figure out what's wrong with it. But looks wrong to me is the Allosaurus.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
I don't
this
know
one is
what's wrong
almost
with it,
a
though.
dud.
It's
looks almost dud list
wrong.
worthy, but not quite.
Mm-hmm.
It is Jamadsanai, I think, so that's part of why it looks
no,
weird.
The head's not my issue. The body is.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it.
It's another one of those cursed ones for me.
I will stick your finger on a couple things, Eric, that I've noticed about the Allosaurus. First of all, the arms are too short. Second of all, the feet are actually possibly too small, and they look too column-y. Like, the ankles and the feet look like too small and, like, tiptoey. Like, they're really squashed together.
Yeah.
Like the toes. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right in that. For some reason, my brain's also thinking that it needs more torso. Like it needs to be thicker
Maybe.
for some reason.
It does have,
I don't know why that might not be the issue, but for some reason my brain is saying
that leg is coming forward on that side. So there is that. To me, the back line has always looked a little weird, and I think I just figured out what it is, and that's that the spines on the torso and the spines on the top of the base of the tail seem to enter or connect with the hips at different elevations and different angles, and that's just not right. It looks like almost the hip is almost pointed upwards. It's really weird.
Yeah,
the spines don't look that consistent.
Yeah, it doesn't look that consistent. Something, I think at the base of the tail was where I was really picking up on it, but I was looking at just like, because you can kind of see how the hip is kind of pushing out of the skin, like the shape of it, and it just looks weirdly upturned.
One thing that PNSO consistently does, it's one of the few things that's actually predictable about their designs, is that they like lumpy back lines, and this one does have a little bit of lumpy back syndrome.
You know, I just realized real quick just how listeners are going to have to look up what these things look like, because I just fully realized how we're literally just looking at pictures of things and we're describing them, but like...
Here, I'm noting down PNSO Amazon page. In the description, there'll be a link to this, so you can look at them and bitch about them with us. Also, PNSO, you can't be angry because we just promoted you, okay? Now they can buy all your shitty figures.
Maybe buy a figure. Buy the Pachycephalosaurus. I actually really like how that one looks.
Yes, I'm going to get the Pachycephalosaurus. You can join me.
Figure. That's a solid figure.
I'm also planning on getting the Tuajangosaurus. I really like the Chiansasaurus, even though that one's head is pretty fucked up.
Oh my gosh. What on earth happened to the Corythosaurus's head? Why is it so big?
Oh, it's way too big. Yeah.
I remembered it being big, but I'm looking at it now, and I'm just like...
It's a fucking
bobblehead syndrome. Like, it's not
I've
even
seen
like
some
just
in-hand
a little
pictures
too big.
that look
it's
a
like
little...
grossly... Like, how did this happen?
But...
How did the model maker look at this thing and go, yeah, that looks good? Like, what? How? I'm so confused.
I don't know.
I have no explanation for you.
The Bryllopelta is another one I fucking love.
Yes. Bryllopelta,
nice
the Miragaia, the Sinoceratops, and the Pachy are the ones I'm still planning on getting, and maybe the Panachosaurus and Chiansao.
Let's talk about some of their good ones real quick, so we're not just...
real quick sweep through of the good ones. This Miragaia is a glorious, crazy, spiky thing, and I love it.
Yes, I want to get it. It looks... I love the colors. I love the colors of the plates that they gave it. The neck is long. It looks good. I like the coloration. The detail looks good.
It is supposed to be long.
It's hard. It's hard to really say anything else about it. It's just like, this looks good. I want it.
It's got a skinny tail, but other than that, I'm
it does got a skinny
tail. And a short tail.
But
and a bit of a short tail.
Now that I'm looking at the head, might be a little big. But these aren't
possibly.
These aren't like for me at least, subjectively, they aren't like some of the other things we're knowing before.
No, I agree. Because the thing
kind
is,
of make
PNSO...
me not want to get it. This is like, this is still got a couple flaws.
Oh, god damn it. I just noticed something that I really don't like about it.
Well, what?
I was looking at the back line, and I realized how like it had another stupid hip attachment, but then I was looking at the actual fucking plates, and they have the stupid Papo and like Awesome Bro crack design to them. They literally are cracked like rocks. They're not even fucking plates.
Oh, they do have that, but it's not nearly to the Papo Stegosaurus.
No. Because they're not painted, but they're there. Like,
they're
if
not,
you look at
the texture is way different, though. It's not nearly as bad as that.
Yeah.
I guess I'll give you that, but it looks... That's bothering me big time.
It's not nearly as bad, but I will say that does...
In general, the Tuajang is a lot more solid, but I still really want the Miragaia.
Because even though when, like, in your mind that might make sense to happen, I'm just trying... I can't think of actually any keratin sheaths on any animal that actually has cracks in it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
don't know that... It's not super visible, so it's not a major issue. I've never been a huge fan of the Miragaia anyways, because some of the proportional issues bother me a bunch, like the head and stuff, but... And I'm just... I don't know. I'm not crazy about the way they depicted the spikes along its back because I don't think it's entirely accurate either, even though that we're not like entirely sure.
Well,
I
it's
think,
not
exactly
necessarily
how
that it's inaccurate, it's just that it's a bit unreasonable, but
Yeah.
I still kind of just dig it
I really
because
like
it just
this,
I just dig it.
Macharoceratops?
Macharoceratops?
Macharoceratops. I really like the way this thing looks.
Don't look up
Yeah.
the in-hand pictures, you'll be sad. Looks
Oh,
like
okay.
a knockoff.
Oh, that's the other thing I want to say with PNSO too.
Yeah.
Oh
is
yeah.
Their paint detailing, their paint jobs are really inconsistent. And I think
Yeah.
my sad story, I think, highlights this. So I only have one PNSO figure. I have Seed, because they give all their figures names, the Ankylosaurus. And I wanted this figure.
If you're confused about it, it's actually Seda, but we call it Seed because it's funny.
Oh.
It's SED.
I thought it was literally just Seed, but I'm going to call it Seed. I love Seed so much
better.
more. I'm not going back.
Yeah.
So I watched Killer Shrew Fan's review of this, and I'm just like, that looks like a really nice figure. I want it. And then Aydin actually got it for me, I think for Christmas, birthday, something like that. And I got it, and then I was like, I don't like this. Like, why don't I like this? I remember really liking it. So then I actually went on to Killer Shrew Fan's review again. I looked at it, and I was like, WTF? What the heck happened? Why does his paint job look so much better? So much, like, imagine, like, if you go into his channel right now and you look at the thing that he has. Mine looks like that, but it was sitting and no one cared about it for 4 years, and it got covered in dust, just coated in dust. But like that grayer tone,
It literally
to it
looks
is
like just
how
the
it looks.
saturation meter got turned down.
Yeah, and I'm just like, what on earth? Because he didn't get a special promotion one or anything. He literally just bought it. These are just two
that's
different
just
paint
the
runs.
inconsistency of two different production runs.
How
And that's kind of
on
shocking.
earth
That
did
keeps
this
happening
happen?
with
They look
PNSO.
so like, this is literally like, I know you got this for me, Aydin, and I always feel bad hating on
No.
things people got for me, but honestly, I'm just like, that's a figure where like,
It honestly,
I'm just
it makes
like,
me
I could
upset
see myself
too,
getting rid of
because-
it. Like, I'm just like, this thing, especially when I know what it could have been, it just makes it even worse for me. Like, it makes me dislike
Yeah.
it more knowing that there's better ones out there.
Hey, at least I gave you one you wanted at the time. You could sell it, and then maybe you could get money back for it and spend that on something else you like. So
Yeah, I mean, true. I mean, that's, you know, I know we're linking the Amazon page here, but before you buy a PNSO figure, for goodness sakes, look them up in hand versions
out
first.
of anything,
Look at
because
reviews
they're expensive
first,
too.
because they are expensive.
Yeah,
and
they're
their paint job
really expensive
is,
for what they are.
I think, especially in the case of the Ankylosaurus, can be just stupidly inconsistent.
Yes.
So make sure you don't just look at the promo images and buy it.
A great example of that's the Panachosaurus. I loved the promo images of that to death. It has the thorny devil colors, and then when I saw the fucking in-hand paintwork on it, it just looks sloppy as all shit, and I just don't like it. I really don't like it at all. I know that
I've
Gibson's
warmed
still
back up
considering
to it. I'm
but
still kind of thinking about it, just because I love the sculpt and the tail anatomy of it so
great.
much. But yeah, no, it's still very much disappointing compared to the promo images.
Mm-hmm.
Promo images look amazing, but the in-hand...
This Sauropelta, though, is weirdly tempting.
I don't know if I've seen the in-hand stuff. No, I have. I think
I like that one. That one looks cool. I don't know if I've seen in hand of it either, but
this
at
one's
least
head
the Amazon page
kind
is
of
neat.
bothers me in a different way. It almost... What kind of vibe does it give me? It looks like an alien or something. Like the way that it's like face is like really like filled
The
out.
Sauropelta?
Has all these, like, yeah. It's not a major thing for me. It's just like what is it? I'm trying to think.
I don't
there's
see what you're
something-
talking about.
There's something I don't know what my brain is attaching to. That it looks like
Your brain is like, it's a face hugger, run.
something like there's a real
Scales
animal,
are really
though.
big on it, is what I'm noticing at least.
The what?
The scales are really big on it on the Sauropelta.
Oh yeah, they're really.
You got to remember, people. Dinosaurs, we have skin impressions from them. They actually had really tiny scales for these big animals. They did not
Except
have
for
big scales.
Triceratops.
Yeah, except for Triceratops.
Oh yeah,
But, like, if you
Triceratops is
saw
like the
them-
one that's like, what on earth is going on with the scales? Why are they so big?
Then again, everything about Triceratops is like dialed up to 11 in terms of defensibility and like combat, so it probably was meant to defend itself.
It's not even a good, even scale wise, because we have scales from other ceratopsians. Like other ceratopsian scales do not look like Triceratops scales. They're like normal. Triceratops is abnormal from other ceratopsians for several different reasons, but the scales are definitely one of them.
Yeah. I don't remember what it is. There's some animal that its head is reminding me of, and I can't think of it, so I'm just gonna have to forfeit it. But I still like it. I like the sword pelted. There's just something about its head that it's really reminding me of something.
Now, we're probably going to wrap up relatively soon-ish, but I feel like we should conclude our PNSO rant with some Gamba discussion, as much as I just don't even want to go there. Gamba depresses me, because...
How? At least on
Gamba
the thing right here, I'm confused.
No, the promo images, although the head shape is not necessarily perfect, it was close enough, like actually-wise and just design-wise, I liked enough that based on the promo images of Gamba, I was all for this thing. And I was excited to get it.
These look really nice. Like, I'm looking up in-hand stuff now because I'm confused.
Well, since the in-hand stuff came out, I've taken it off my wanted list. Not because the in-hand stuff is so bad that I'm like, I definitely don't want it, but just because I'm just not sure, and it's conflicted me so much. The black paint around the mouth looks pretty bad in some of them, and in some cases, the airbrushing of the black stripes on the body looks kind of weird, and in general, like, I don't know.
Sorry, it's so funny to see how they have their Spinosaurus and the Carcharodontosaurus promoted with each other in the picture there, and it shows you how small and undersized the Spino is compared to it. It's just like, okay.
Oh, yeah. That feels like a bad decision.
Yeah, wow, okay, yeah, the paint, just talk about paint inconsistencies.
Yeah.
Look at this thing's mouth. Oh,
and
shit,
some
you
of
were
them
talking
look
about this a
decent,
long
and
time
some
ago,
of them
right?
look
Like,
real
bad. It looks kind of like it ate tar.
Yeah, I said it ate oil, like it was drinking oil. That's what I was saying about it.
Okay, I vaguely remember us talking about this a while ago.
I even with that though, I've been slowly almost convincing myself to get it again, but Eric's words have been echoing around my head because he told me, he's like, hey Aydin, if you're not in love with it, don't get it. You don't need to spend your money on it. Just save your money.
If
that's where I'm at too.
Debating whether Eric, you should get it or not, right. Don't get it.
Yes. If I have to debate, and that's the thing, PNSO, if I'm going to wrap up PNSO and how I feel about everything, it's that they are so consistently trapped in this bucket for me, where there's so many of them that make me consider it. And then I'm like, why am I considering this when I could spend, the same amount of money or maybe $10 more than a $40 figure? I can buy a fucking BOTM figure that's way bigger and way cooler, or I could even spend the same amount of money on an EoFauna figure, which is going to be better every single time. And I just don't see any reason to buy it most of the time.
I'm in a super similar camp with PNSO where it just, they're in that perpetual state of I almost want this, but I can't quite convince myself to get it for the vast majority of their stuff.
Oh, yes. A lot of the stuff too. There's only, like, I think we said, like the Packy even a lot of the other stuff, the Packy's kind of the only one that I'm just like, I want that one. A lot of the other ones I'm just like, Hey,
that one looks cool, but I don't know.
But also, before we move on real quick, the other issues with the car is like the stripes on the back just look really dull and weird looking.
Yeah.
But anyways, I think that's definitely an issue. Yeah. Oh my gosh, PNSO. They're so... I mean, like, I love the wording that you gave to them, because I fully agree with it, Aydin. They're subtly cursed. Like, like, even like the Carno right now, I'm looking at it. I can't put it might be that scales are too big. I'm not too sure, but the Carno, I think the
scales are really off-puttingly big on that one.
For some reason, it's just subtly cursed to me, and like a lot of their stuff, even though some of this is not necessarily objective flaws, like some of it is just subjective. I just don't
Yeah.
like their style a lot. But it just, they just kind of, I don't know what
My
to say.
big thing
They're subtly cursed.
with Domingo, it sucks because we went quickly within 1 year, which was 2019. We went from like having like no Carnotauruses and really wanting an updated and like accurate Carnotaurus to having quite a few and good choices to pick from. Because, but like it's well, I'm not all of them were great, but still, this one, it like I already have. The Collector one's great, and I also got the Carnegie one finally around the same time as I got the Collector one. So I have two really great ones that I really like a lot. But I look at this one, and Carnotaurus is weird for me because it's one of those dinosaurs that actually was in the spot where it was like with Sinoceratops and what's the other one? Shit, I can't remember. Pentaceratops. Those two dinosaurs were ones that were really popular, like stupidly popular, and I just like I kind of subtly hated them just because of that, and because I was like, these are just so overrated. Carnotaurus
you were
is
the
like
same
that
with
for me.
even T-Rex, right? A long time ago.
Kind of. T-Rex is an interesting case, but I'm not gonna get into that. But yes, for all intents and purposes, yes, you're right.
Long story, not for now.
Yes. But Carnotaurus, I used to hate it too, just because I'm like, it's just got fucking horns. Why does everybody love it? And then I watched Trey the Explainer's video on it, and I was like, oh, okay. You know what? It's not just the horned dinosaur. It's really fucking cool. Whatever, but it wasn't one of my favorites.
Very unique.
It's so, like, there's no other theropod even. Like, it's so beyond just the theropod with horns. Like, it's got so many cool features.
It's got a lot else going on.
I mean, the horns definitely are a feature, because I don't think any other theropods have that. But
no,
it has so many. I mean, some of the things are just because it's an abellisaurid, but even for an abellisaurid, it's a really cool animal.
Yeah, and the thing that drove it home for me is when I was at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, and they had the Ultimate Dinosaurs exhibit there. I was there with my grandfather, and they had a Carnotaurus skeleton, like a full thing, mounted there. And I was rattling off all these facts I learned from the Trey the Explainer video, and it was in that moment when I was explaining it to him and seeing his awe, I was even being captivated by my own words and the recollection. I'm like, you know what? This thing is fucking awesome. This is a really fucking cool dinosaur. And it was in that moment, on that day, that I realized it was one of my favorite dinosaurs of all time. So I made a whole conversion on it. And ever since then, I've been like, and now this is my own detriment here, but I've been obsessively like, well, I'm super obsessed with just like the making sure you depict the animal correctly. And I look at Domingo and I'm like, you got close. But those thick-ass ankles, they look really weird, and you have almost no cauda muscle on this motherfucker.
Yeah, it's got a thin tail.
Again, the scales look really big on it. And for something that we have like, really good skin impressions of, that's kind of criminal to me.
Yeah.
Why are they so big? They should be so much smaller.
So Domingo, for me, like, he's one of those ones where, like, it's pretty popular, and I understand, I genuinely do see why, because it's not a bad Carnotaurus, it's better than Safari's, but...
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I still look at it, and I'm like, no, I can't, like, it's unacceptable to me. And it's not because I'm saying that it's just, like, really bad, it's just, to me, Carnotaurus has a really... And I still haven't gotten the perfect Carnotaurus. EoFauna will do it, I'm sure. But the Collector one is still my favorite one, and I really like the Carnegie one too. It's a close second, but neither one of them are perfect, but they still are good enough, just proportion wise, that I'm like, okay, they get the important things down. And this one just messes up the biggest things for me. Like, that will, even no matter how accurate your Carnotaurus is otherwise, if you fuck up the legs and the tail, I'm done. It'll kill it for me. Like, this is a perfect example. This made it clear to me, if you fuck up the legs and the tail for me, it screws it up, because that's so important to me and how much I love Carnotaurus, because that is what powered this motherfucker. It was its steam locomotive. Just
for those who might not know, Carnotaurus was basically like the cheetah of dinosaurs. Like, it had... Yes. It was skinny-ish. It probably had... I mean, we have a really good specimen of it, but the legs are kind of the part that we don't have the best
only
of,
the lower half, like from the knee down.
Only the lower half. The legs are pretty long, and even more so than that. So dinosaurs have this muscle that runs in their tail that connects to their leg bone, and that's what pushes their leg back. We don't have it as mammals.
Caudifemoralis muscle.
Caudifemoralis muscle. In Carnotaurus, this muscle is huge, like huge. So it would have had a lot of power to push back
And
on
a
that
very,
leg
very thick tail base.
to really,
and a
really
stiff
thick
tail
base.
not because of the vertebrae, but because of the muscle. Like the actual muscle would have held this thing in place. It would have been almost stiff as a board.
Push this thing forward, and it probably, based on some other features of its vertebrae too, was eating like small little things. So this was like a sprinting dinosaur that would run out really quick, super fast. I mean, it might have been it might have been the fastest of the large dinosaurs, at least. Run out, grab a little thing, and then eat it. And then, of course, it also got horns on its head, which, no
is fun.
Other carnivore that we know about ever had horns on its head, which makes it
probably
cool.
didn't run into each other or impale things with them, but they're still cool.
No. I mean, it's important to note that like goat like headbutting is like unique to basically just goats. Like they might have been still like pushing each other with their heads like deer and stuff.
And bison. Bison even will ram each other a little bit, but they're not muskox and other goats and stuff will actually ram
They're
each
much
other.
more adapted for it.
Actual ramming like that requires a whole bunch of adaptations that Carnotaurus did not have.
Like even like we were talking about headbutting, and you should really think about it butting. Like Triceratops has some pretty good evidence that they were sparring with each other, but they probably lined up like deer and then just like raked each other's horns in and then just shoved against each other. They probably didn't ram each other really hard.
The other thing about Carnotaurus too is the arms are absolutely minuscule. Like T-Rex is made fun of for having small arms. Carnotaurus's arms were even smaller. Like they literally couldn't do anything with their arms.
But just like I say with
tiny.
T-Rex, if you were standing in front of this motherfucker, you wouldn't be making fun of its small arms because that's what it reduced those so it could kill you better.
With
its face.
So it could kill you better with its face, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
but there's Carnotaurus for you. For lays who don't know. I know that we haven't really been describing many of these dinosaurs.
Yes.
Just now we decided to get educational.
I think Carnotaurus was
Eric's
justified.
Gonna single-handedly drive us down a more educational path with dinosaurs.
Well, I think Carnotaurus is like, if people are listening to this and they don't know what Carnotaurus is, that's one where it's like, you need to know what Carnotaurus looks like, because it's so cool.
Hey, we're all, like, sure, Gibson and I are more media focused than Eric, but we're not just like media nerds. We're like, we love dinosaurs and animals and stuff. We are nerds. We are nerds. We are. Like
living.
I'm not a nerd. I'm a Chad. I don't know what you're talking about.
He is a fucking nerd. He's scrawny. He's like 5'6",
5'7".
5'7". He's a nerd.
Yeah, I'm massive. Fear me. Hey, so it's pretty damn late here. My family is most likely unconscious, and we have plenty of episode runtime, so unless anybody has anything final and epic and poignant to say, we should probably get wrapping it up relatively soon.
I agree.
That's
we definitely went over 2 hours. I think this
well
was
over, I
good.
believe.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think this is solid length. We didn't go well over. I got a timer on my thing where we've only been recording for 2 hours and 15 minutes, and 10 of that was just us talking before the show. So we're like 2 hours.
We're fucking professionals.
Yeah.
Yes, we're really good. We're really good. So, anyways, thank you so much for joining us, Eric. I'm definitely hoping to have you on again. I had a blast. This was
I'm
really
hoping
great.
to join again. I really enjoyed this. I know we were talking before thing, but there were several times where I was even debating, like, should I start my own podcast? Because there's opinions and things I want to say, but I wasn't too sure if I wanted to do it. And then you guys started your podcast, and I was like, oh, great, I can write off these guys.
I can mooch off of them.
Fucking leech.
Your master plan is developing.
Yeah, no, this was all intentional. I'm the one who planted the seed in your
Eric
brain.
Lamprey.
Oh my God, look at him go.
Eric Lamprey.
We went through all of my notes in my notepad, but just out of order and like through naturally. Like we all just kind of knew what we wanted to talk about. And I didn't even have to interject any of it.
Yeah, no, we talked totally about I mean, this was the dinosaur figure podcast episode.
We went into it.
We
got in deep.
If you don't love dinosaur figures, then you shouldn't have listened to this. I'm sorry for you. But if you do love dinosaur figures, I hope that you feel more enlightened and learned some stuff and heard some of our hot takes.
And maybe got insulted by me calling you an idiot if you like the hell of a crap.
Yes. Yes.
But I think that we're pretty dinosaur talk. At least me. I think that covers everything I wanted to talk about with dinosaur figure stuff. So we'll be talking about something else in the next episode, and Eric might be with us. So
hopefully, I'm planning on it as of right now. So
if
I'm not there, then I died. That's the only explanation.
The only one.
So thank you guys for listening, and I hope you don't get run over by a bus. Have a great day.
Yeah, don't get hit by a milk truck.
Don't subscribe.